And the Washington County Quorum Court is now called into session. Good evening. We got another full agenda and got a full house. Good to see everyone this evening. With that, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. J.P. Madison, will you go ahead and lead us in prayer and pledge?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, I provide a good friend with an involved interest in local and state government. Mr. Malin Rice is going to do our prayer tonight. Join me.
We'll all bow our heads and close our eyes, please. As the silence fills this room, let us all remember why we're here, to do the people's business, to do that in a way that reflects each of us in our ethics, and our love, and our caring for our fellow man. Watch over this quorum court tonight as they conduct the county's business, Lord. Watch over each of them as they search their souls and their minds to find the best solution to the many problems they face. And as we gather in the audience, let us remember why we're here. Let's remember decorum. Let's remember there are two sides to every story. And let's remember this, that the inaction of government is a responsibility we all share. If you'll join me as we pray the prayer our Lord taught us. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, and those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the glory, and power forever. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Malin Rice, and thank you, J.P. Madison. We have the adoption of the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda with a correction.
All right, we have a correction.
There's a correction, needs to be a correction. I believe it's page 6. Ms. Davis Beaupre's name is spelled incorrectly. It's B-E-A-U-P-R-E, I believe.
D-A-U.
B-E-A-U-P-R-E.
Is that on the minutes or the agenda?
Minutes.
Oh, we're on the.
Well, on the agenda.
We're on the agenda.
Let me start over.
J.P. Harbison.
I need to add an item to the agenda, an emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Which one was that?
It will be, I guess,
2019
be
123.
28, I guess. It'll be at
No,
the end.
what is the ordinance that you're looking to?
Oh, the number of it?
This item number?
Read it. I don't know which one you're looking at.
I'm looking at the one of the Blackburn Community Church near Devil's Den.
Black Oak Community Church. And you're looking to make that a emergency, put an
Yes.
emergency clause on that one?
CUP. It's non-controversial.
You have that one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll make that item number.
Yeah, I make a motion that
Number
we put
18,
the-
okay.
Right after the consent agenda.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Those opposed? All right, so that one is added. J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I also have an item to add to the agenda. I guess this will be item number 29. It's item 19I-123. It's an ordinance to establish the additional motor fuel tax fund and to declare an emergency. It's handed out. Everyone's got a.
I got it, but I didn't get yours.
All right. And that, what number is that one? 20,
It'll be 18 right after the consent agenda.
oh, right after the consent. Okay. All right, we have a motion
28, I guess.
to add that one. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ms. Patty, can we do a quick roll?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Eckie, Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Shonda Washington, Eva Madison,
No.
Andrea Jenkins,
No.
Suki Hires,
No.
Sue Madison,
No.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Vaughn.
Yes.
8-4.
What was that number?
8-4.
Oh,
Lance
Lance
Johnson.
Johnson. Sorry. Sorry.
so that's not 10? How many was it?
9.
9, okay, so that does not go into the agenda. All right, so now with the addition of the one adoption,
Just real quick, to speak to that, this is something that Legislative Audit has asked us to pass before 2020. It's adding an additional fund, or just a line item in the budget. That's why we just got it, because they just sent it to us. And so I'd ask that you reconsider, because this is something we have to have for 2020. It's got to go in our budget. It has nothing to do with what we budget, it has nothing to do with our revenue or our income or our expenses. It's just taking that one issue that was Act 416 of 2019 and creating a separate line item in the road department budget to track how that money, how much money comes in from this tax and how the money is spent. That's all that is, and that's why you didn't get it beforehand, because we didn't get an email about it. I think Bobby got an email about it on Monday, and so that's why we're having to add it.
JP Pine.
To clarify, for this to be brought up, it would have to be brought up by one of the no voters, is that correct?
That's correct.
We can't.
If nobody wants to, that's fine.
Okay, so it does not go on to the agenda. So with that, we have the adoption of the agenda as amended. Go ahead, JP
It's
Harbison.
really not a money issue. So it looks like it only needs a majority to pass.
You're suspending the rules to amend the agenda. It takes a supermajority, 2/3 vote. It would have to have 10 votes in order to suspend the rules to add it to the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Okay, got a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? JP Madison, we have second? And second by JP Hires, all in favor? Those opposed? All right, the agenda's been adopted. Preliminary motions, item 4.
I'll get straight sooner or later. Okay, I move that the minutes be approved with
No,
the...
preliminary.
I'm still not there. Where are the preliminary?
6 will be you.
Any preliminary?
6 is me. I move that we read all ordinances by title only.
Got a motion to move and read by title only, a second by JP Hires, no, was it Hires? Okay, JP Hires, all in favor? Those opposed? All right, at this point, we have citizen comments. We ask the citizens come forward and visit with us. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Okay. Do I need to sit
You
down?
got go ahead, sit down, the mic is already on. We've got 15 minutes, 3 minutes per individual. Go ahead, tell us
Okay,
who you are.
Dwayne Sizemore. I live in District 5, out by Joyce Cemetery, where they're trying to do an emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use for a Ozark sanctuary. I've lived out there 58 of my 63 years. We've got wells, we've got springs. This drains right off into Beaver Lake. And there's no one in this community that is for this. And that I know of, only 2 people got letters even informing them that this was in front of the board, the quorum court, to be done. We worry about, E. coli, salmonella. I mean, there's sinkholes out here with water running through them on the adjoining property. There's new home right beside this property. And we're gonna do a cemetery and bury people 18 inches deep with no vaults, no embalming, no caskets. I mean, animals will dig up 18-inch deep body. And does District 5, do they not get to vote on something like this?
It's just citizen comments, so you're just visiting with
Okay.
us and telling us your thoughts. And
Okay.
so I appreciate that.
But anyway, I'm on well water, and a lot of my neighbors are on well water. Everybody here that drinks out of Beaver Lake is drinking out of water that runs right off of this property. And what you bury 18 inches, I mean, you can't go through Natural Resources Conservation and bury dead poultry. It's gotta be deeper than 18 inches for a loss of poultry on a farm, much less a human body. So, I mean, I don't know where this is a for-profit or what the deal is or what's the prerequisite, but supposedly no embalming, no nothing. So, I mean, if there's a disease, they're just gonna put it in the ground. To go into your groundwater, my groundwater, and everybody probably in this audience here.
Thank you, Mr.
Devalue our
Sizemore.
property.
Thank you, Mr. Sizemore.
Dick Johnson, 13650 Pin Oak Road, 45-year resident. I've only got one point to make, and it is, I want to emphasize this and make sure this is part of the record. That is that the citizens of Weddington Woods disagree with an objective figure that has been carried throughout the discussion of the Weddington Mine CUP. I'm going to read to you, for brevity, a short email exchange between myself and Mr. Lester, and this will be self-explanatory. I asked Mr. Lester if he could provide a copy of the engineer's seal and signature for the site sight line distance for a left-turning vehicle. He replied, "The sight line distance determination is performed by the county staff as is customary. Therefore, there's no seal and signature for sight distance. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call." I said that the study the Citizens commissioned for the Terminella CUP from Peterson Associates of Little Rock did not agree with the county staff study on the subject of sight distance. Our study is signed and sealed by a licensed engineer, Ernest Peters. Am I to understand that there's no licensed engineer on the county staff who certifies the information presented? If not, who is responsible? Mr. Lester replied, "The county has licensed engineer, however. The county code does not require the site distance determination be certified by an engineer and has historically been determined by county planning staff or the county road department." I said, "So to be clear, you're saying that if the county choosing to ignore the fact as opposed to an opinion that the planners are using the wrong chart to determine line of sight distance for a loaded dump truck making a left-hand turn, and that point has been pointed out by a licensed traffic engineer that it doesn't matter? You would think that safety would be a primary concern of the county judge." Evidently, my email left off the word judge. Brian asked, "Do you mean the quorum court?" And I replied, "No, the administration." Then Brian said, "The county administration does not and cannot grant a CUP. Only the quorum court can do that. I will, however, pass along your concern regarding the county planning department using an invalid and incorrect data to determine site distance." I said, "Thank you, Brian. I know that the administration does not approve a CUP, but do you provide the information and recommendations to the quorum court to help them make the decision? I would think that the burden of providing accurate safety information would be very important and worthy of verification." Brian then attached to me the established site distance regulated by the county that is specified by county ordinance in 2009. I forwarded that to our traffic engineer, who said this: "It is unfortunate they have passed an ordinance in 2009. While it reflects Green Book values for ordinary vehicles, it fails to take into account the longer truck time gap requirements for trucks. The values cited in the county's 2019 application findings of required distance, 500 feet left turn at 45 miles an hour, 390 at 35 miles an hour are the same as those tabulated in the ordinance.
Mr. Johnson, 30 seconds.
That does not make them correct. However, it would seem to be ill-advised to neglect to account for the vehicle type that could reasonably be expected to use the intersection, to provide a condition that would fail to take that into account for longer truck gap requirements for trucks could bring liability into question.
Thank
I
you.
only wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Hi, my name is Vicki Kelly. I appreciate this time to come share just a little bit with you. I'm the president and founder of Natural State Burial Association. We are a 501c3 with the stated mission to inform the public about their options for a natural burial in a green cemetery. The information that we share is primarily garnered from the Green Burial Council, which is an international organization, and I have done presentations across the state. I've talked to churches and clubs and schools, the U of A, the Ollie Continuing Education, the Mortuary Sciences School. I've talked in Little Rock, in Pine Bluff, in Mountain Home, and I have collected over 1,200 public interest surveys that support this project. We also have a waiting list of people. I cannot tell you how many times I hear natural burial, no embalming, the biodegradable container, no vault, in nature, in the wilderness. That's what I want. Is it legal? Yes, it is. And the next question is, where can I go? And there's not one. But there's one on your agenda. There's one proposed, and it passed the planning board unanimously passed the planning board. And they heard all the gory details. They heard from the people who seemed to think that Poltergeist and The Walking Dead were somehow documentaries. We know that everything we're doing is legal. We mentioned what the law says. Their concern is groundwater. This project has already been signed off on by the Beaver Water District. This project is designed where there are only 214 bodies per acre. The average concentration in a conventional cemetery is over 2,000 per acre. And if they're worried about groundwater runoff, rather than the fact that the bodies that go into a natural cemetery simply become dirt, as in like earth to earth, if you look at the cemetery that is adjacent to this property, they are burying hardwood, chemicals, formaldehydes, cancer-causing agents, concrete, which is also full of leads and other contaminants.
30
That's
seconds,
the
Ms. Kelly.
concern.
30 seconds.
I want to tell you how much we appreciate this, and if I can't get you excited from an environmental perspective, would you at least acknowledge that there are people who deserve the right to choose, and that this option should be available in the natural state? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sherry Main, 15574 Riches Road, Fayetteville. I'm here to speak on the Weddington Mine CUP. I don't know if all of you had a chance to look at it, but I did email all of the JPs, Attorney Lester and Chief Gales, a email with some attachments today. But I wanted to just touch base on about 3 things that have not been brought to anyone's attention, or maybe they have, but I just wanted to reiterate those things. And I did do some more research on the county ordinances, and I found ordinance number 2004-19, Articles 1 through 15, 3-1104, which pertains to the protection of county and public roads. This section applies to the section 12-25A through O of the ordinance. And I attached and made notes for your review to all of the JPs and Attorney Lester and Chief Gales to review that. And my notes writing on that, it's basically in that ordinance, it talks about the protection of county and public roads from excess wear and tear. And everything in reading through that ordinance, I have not seen in this case, nothing in the paragraphs A through O as being done to this point. In every paragraph in there, I have not seen anything done under the judge following this ordinance. And these are county and public roads we're talking about that's going to have excessive wear and tear. And there is one particular paragraph in here under paragraph G and H, where this does talk about specifically, this ordinance was written for commercial or industrial development or operation, herein referred to as development, and it shall mean any improvement or other development of land for the carrying on of business, trade, or commerce, such as dirt pits, gravel pits,
30 seconds, Ms.
mines,
Mann.
quarries, or other businesses. So this ordinance does relate to what I'm talking about. It's been ignored, and it is a Washington County ordinance. So, and also, another two things I wanted to point out was the Hall Road must be included in the 20-acre permit
10 seconds.
area, and best management practices must be in place to avoid stormwater runoff, and Weddington Mine must have an industrial stormwater permit with ADEQ Water Division. And those are all under Chief Carl requirements to Nathan, the planning board,
All
before
right.
it can be permitted.
Thank you. Bring your mic down some more so we can hear. There you go.
My name is Josh McFadden. I'm a Washington County resident, but I'm also an attorney representing several of the landowners in the surrounding area near the proposed Weddington mine property. The planning board, or the Quorum Court, is well aware that the planning board on a previous occasion denied a conditional use permit for this exact same property, a red dirt mine on this exact same property. That was back in 2014. Since that time, there's been nothing that has been brought up to significantly change the series of bases upon which the zoning board back in 2014 and then subsequently the Quorum Court in 2015 denied the conditional use permit for the same property. Those concerns included safety concerns regarding the Hall Road intersection that would be proposed to go onto Harmon Road, the excess debris that would be put on the road during that time, issues of compatibility, the likelihood the mining project would be injurious to the landowners in the surrounding area and their use and enjoyment of the property, as well as the fact that it would diminish and or impair their property values. All of those issues were raised in 2014 and 15 before the zoning board, which by 6-2 vote denied the permit, and the Quorum Court by 11-2 vote who denied the permit for conditional use on this exact same property for the same purpose of red dirt mining. Nothing substantial has changed since then, and yet the zoning board in this case has granted that permit. And now it's before you to consider the exact same thing that the zoning board previously and the Quorum Court determined to be insufficient.
Go ahead and take another 10 seconds.
It's clear if you just compare the simple application for the 2014 permit, which was substantial in nature, provided lots of documentation, engineering reports, to the current application, which is deficient, and essentially just says we meet the requirements of 11-206. That's not enough. The burden is not on the landowners who rely on the restrictions that this Quorum Court put forth, but rather on the mining permit application holder who's attempting to change the status quo.
Thank you, John.
And on that basis, I would ask you not to make the same mistake that the zoning board made. Thank you.
Thank you. Where's our time left? That's 15 minutes. So we'll have public comments when we get to the particular ordinance.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to add 15 minutes to public comment.
Second.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, to add 15 minutes more to the public comments. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deacons. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson.
Okay, Lord, that passes. Come on, we got 15 minutes. Go ahead, again, tell us who you are, and quite a few back there, so you got 3 minutes.
I'll be brief.
Okay.
I won't take the whole 3 minutes. My name is Marcella Terry, and I am a resident of Fayetteville. I've been here for a couple of years now. I moved here because I found a really good doctor here after I'd been diagnosed with a very significant life-altering illness. I'm in remission now, and I hope to stay that way. I'm here to support the Natural State Burial Association and the Green Cemetery. I have a Master of Science degree. I worked in a wellness institute and primarily with adults and children with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And I just want to say a couple of things about the science, about natural burial versus what we have come to accept as normal in our rituals surrounding death. Many of the people that I have worked with in my career have had significant environmental toxicity, particularly with mercury and heavy metals. A lot of people don't realize that concrete, which is used for the vaults, is a very significant source of mercury, and that is a much more dangerous issue to the watershed and to the groundwater than anything from the human body decomposing. Viruses and bacteria will be destroyed by either air or by the act of depriving them from air, from oxygen. There's anaerobic and aerobic bacteria and viruses. And I just want to say that I worked in the 1980s and 1990s helping to set the record straight and to decrease fear surrounding people who were infected with HIV and AIDS. That's a virus that we've all, if you were around in the 80s, I think we all were. 80s and 90s was a very scary thing. And people, our fears take over when we're presented with things that we don't understand or that are different from the ways that we've always viewed things. So I just want to implore, and thank you for this time, but ask you to please not allow fear and unscientific arguments to sway your vote on this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Marcella.
Hello. I'm Washington County Coroner Roger Morris, public comment. I had a lady in line wanted me to ask if, was there any plans for an open air crematory in this thing? In the cemetery issue? Okay, we're good. I'm up here because I would like to ask y'all to consider tabling this matter just for a little bit. There was a lot of questions that wasn't asked during a meeting I wasn't at. I didn't know about it at the time. I don't know whether I just missed it or what. I'm not here representing really either one. It's just that if this goes through, there's questions that have to be answered. If it don't go through, there's questions again that has to be answered. I've been in touch the last 2 days when I found out about this. I've been on conference calls with Little Rock. I've been in touch with their engineers. In fact, talking about the latest concerns that was just here. I've been in touch with my colleagues in Colorado that deal with this. And there's just some issues that's out there that could be good for both parties involved. I'm not showing partiality. I'll do whatever the law says. I do feel for both ones because I understand green. I do recycle. I do understand the fear of having a cemetery in my location that could possibly contaminate. So until we have these questions answered that I can bring, I'm already working on it, that I can bring to you all and give it to you in a pamphlet to look at. And I'll give a copy to the cemetery, and I'll give a copy to who's ever head of Nob Hills area. And then we can come together and have a nice conversation, whether it goes for or against, that we can work through this. Because it's a new thing. There's not one in Arkansas. You know, they have them in other states, but this is Arkansas. I've talked to Little Rock about the issues of regulations or things that, statutes that we may as a county do if we do a green cemetery in our county, that will follow coroner guidelines, because coroner's office will be involved. There's issues with bodies prior to burial. There's issue of maintaining who we know is there with no markers. We just have a lot of things that I'm trying to get together, and I want to hand you all so you'll have due diligence in what your answer is going to be for either party. And whatever you choose, I will back. You know, we all have our own personal views, but we have to follow the law. And that's what I'm here to do. But I can't do that without proper time. And that's why I need Mr. Lester to look on, if you would, to see if we have control over amending, since there's been actually, they're doing this cemetery on old cemetery laws. There's been nothing brought up on greenery.
You had 10 seconds.
So we need to figure out if we can do that ourselves as a county and still allow green space, but do it in a way we can all understand. So I would like to table it until I can get this done for you. Won't be long.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
My name is Annette Cornelison. I am over the Joyce Cemetery. My concern, yes, this is the first one that's going to be in the state of Arkansas. I would ask that maybe there be more thought, such as what the coroner said, in where it goes. I think during the planning commission, nobody lived in that area. It was all people in Fayetteville, Elkins, Farmington. We live there. I was born and raised there. I take care of that cemetery there that will be right next to this. I have a lot of concern about the depth of the grave. They're not going to use a backhoe. They're 215 per acre. To me, that's unrealistic. I understand all of their concerns. But I have concerns. The people of our community have concerns. So I'd really like to just let you all know that this is not something that's to be taken lightly, and that we would really like for them to maybe find another neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Your Honor, and distinguished members of the Quorum Court, I'd just like to address it for just a moment. My name is Eldon Bagwell. Been a pastor and preacher for over 50 years, preached hundreds of funerals. I'd like and I'm well aware of each one of these cemeteries. I'm on the board of the Berkshed Cemetery. And all of these, and at least, if you don't do anything else, do like our coroner said, table it for the time being, get all the information out, because, you know, personally, now this is a personal opinion, and no, I don't see that at all. But, you know, we'll go with the law. That's what will be done, but we don't want one in our community. And here's the thing. Please consider the people that live in this community. As far as I know, just the people who are wanting to start this cemetery is the only one that's for it. Should not all the rest of us have a voice in that? Do we want it? I think each one of you, when you stop to think about it, you want to know who's and what's going on in your next door neighbor's yard. And so we need to keep that in mind. I hope that you'll honor, at least for the time being, our distinguished corner, and at least table it for now and get all the facts out before you make a decision. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pastor Bagwell.
Hello, Stephanie McCullough, 13723 Redbud Drive. Good evening. I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. I sit before you along with my two precious children, Lillian, age 11, and Lucas, age 8. We are here to express our opposition to the CUP requested by the Weddington mine. Our home is less than a mile from the proposed dirt mine site. Both my children attend Farmington school districts. At the last month's meeting, I listened to the Farmington School Superintendent's letter, as well as a video footage of the bus director, both expressing their concerns for the safety of the students on the bus route that passes by the proposed dirt truck entrance exit. The lack of enough line of sight needed to stop, and the added weight of a loaded bus and the fact that the dirt trucks are making a left turn is a recipe for disaster. As a working single mother, I depend on the bus to get my children home safely. After hearing the concerns from our school's top officials, I left last month's meeting in a predicament regarding my kids' after-school transportation. As a family, we are well aware of the dangers of the road as well as what it can take from you. I lost my father-in-law in June of 2011 in a dump truck accident. 6 years later, in June of 2017, we lost my husband and my kid's father in a motorcycle accident. Having lost two very integral parts of our family to the road, I cannot ignore the risk the proposed entrance exit poses to the children and every child that rides that bus home. As you have heard from many people who drive that road daily, the entrance exit is in a terrible spot at the bottom of a curvy hill. Even though there may never be a tragedy as bad as a bus accident, there will be a terrible accident one day in this spot. I will do everything in my power to prevent another family from losing a family member to the road. The loss of life to the road has brought our family much pain and suffering. I would like to end my time with a friendly reminder. Please remember your duty as an elected official is to listen to the residents of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough.
My name's Jim Hendricks. I live at 16160 Beechnut Lane in Weddington Woods. I've used that entrance for 31 years. I am also the transportation supervisor of the Farmington Public Schools, and I've gone on record being against this because it's not safe for our kids. Our superintendent has gone on record because it's not safe for our kids. Our school board president has gone on record because it's not safe for our kids. Now, it is correct, as Mr. Johnson says, the Washington County Design Manual has a 390-foot sight distance at 35 miles an hour. One size fits all, but we know that's not the case. If you've ever been behind a dump truck, school bus, a semi at a stoplight, you know they don't all accelerate the same. It is not one size fits all. So if you look at the previous minutes, Juliette Ritchie, Sean Schrum, and A. Clay Grote, which was the county contract engineer at the time, even at 35 miles an hour, is 488 feet of sight distance because they say that you have to take the time gap into consideration. And I would like to read a little bit from those minutes. For staff to ignore the use of the larger time gap coefficient for single unit trucks in the sight distance equation, which is what equated to the larger sight distance needed than originally calculated, would be negligent on our part. So the county has gone on record before saying even lowering the speed limit, which I think had to come from very, very high up the ladder. I don't think just anybody can do that. But to lower the speed limit, to try to lower the sight distance is still not enough. It requires 488 feet. They have 446 feet. So they are still short. There are charts all over the internet. They agree, 390 feet for a passenger car. This one is Oregon State in 2012 for the Oregon DOT. So it's not just our neighborhood, it's across the country, folks. This one for single unit vehicles agrees with Juliette Ritchie, Sean Schrum, and A. Clay Grote, the county contract engineer, 488 feet for a single unit vehicle. It's not one size fits all. So when you say you are going to be negligent, you are going to be negligent. I bet Weddington Mines is going to take zero liability and zero responsibility for an accident that happens on the county road. So you have gone on record saying you don't have enough sight distance. You have gone on record saying that you're going to be negligent. So I just want to also bring up the judge's idea plan. I love your acronym on there that says citizens first and safety first. It says that in 2 places on your webpage. So I hope that you guys put citizens first and safety first. And Mr. Duncan, I can't believe it, but appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Have a great day.
15 minutes is done.
The 15 minutes is done? The 15 minutes is done. We'll have, again, other parts on the agenda where citizens will be able to come and talk. With that, we will move on to approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I'd like to
Yes.
make the motion that I made about 30 minutes ago.
So what was that one? That
It was
a-
to approve the minutes with the correction of the spelling of Ms. Davis Beaupre's last name.
Did you capture that, Ms. Patty? For the correction. So we have the approval of the minutes with the correction. Any other? A second? Second. And a second, all in favor? All right. Those opposed? All right, we have the approval of the minutes. We'll move on to the judge's report. With a packed agenda, I'll only cover a few things. One, your disposal report is in your packet. I do want to thank the elected officials and JPs, Washington County employees who went out and spent their Veterans Day with the Patterson family and Joe Patterson's funeral. And the family wanted me to say thank you to them. They're very supportive, very appreciative of what your calls and flowers and coming out there on a pretty bad day out there, but recognizing and memorializing J.P. Patterson. So I wanted to share that with you guys, that they were really appreciative of that. Dr. Kellyanne Way and the U of A honor students, I want to give them some recognition. They had me come out and visit with them and speak to the whole opioid addiction and the epidemic that's again, running rampant across the country, but in particular here in the state of Arkansas and this region. And so we got some really good kids, really sharp students there, future social workers, nurses, and doctors in that class. And so, again, I want to thank Dr. Kellyanne Way for having me come out there. We'll have notification going out tomorrow afternoon regarding the selection of the vendor for the criminal justice study. And lastly, you should have a packet regarding December 2nd. We're asking the county citizens, the JPs, elected officials to come out, participate in the coming to see Santa as we recognize and support the Northwest Arkansas Children's Hospital. With that, we will go ahead and jump in. JP Ecke is out. Oh, it's on the second reading. So, Counselor, will you go ahead and read item 8?
Mr. Judge,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
if I could, in view of some of the comments that were made, and perhaps with Mr. J.P. Deacon's approval, I'd like to move that we table the natural burial issue out of respect for our coroner more than anything else. I was prepared to vote for it, but I think out of respect for our coroner, it would be wise for us to table that issue.
I'll second.
Well, so we get, you mentioned J.P. Deacons.
He's the sponsor.
Oh,
Yes, I'm fine with that. I'll second that motion to the December meeting. I think that would be
all right.
very wise of us.
All
I would
right.
like to comment that at the planning board meeting, it was said that Coroner Morris did not have opposition to that pending Arkansas Health Department approval. And so I would like everybody to recognize that that's a new development from what happened at the planning board meeting, and we need to take that into consideration. Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
I was just going to say, I was going to suggest, if anything, we left it on first reading, but tabling is fine. The coroner contacted me today. He's not, I want to be clear to the people that are here on that issue. We're doing this now so you can go home because we have a long agenda, so be thankful for that. But this is not, to be clear, the coroner is not opposing this. He is trying to do due diligence. This is an issue that I think, from the comments we've heard, is something that we should consider carefully. And all he's doing is trying to get information from state agencies to help us make that decision. And he was trying to do it before tonight's meeting, and he couldn't get it done. And so I had agreed with him today as well that I would favor postponing a vote until December, just so that we could be informed in our vote.
Okay,
that's
so
the
JP
intention.
Madison, we have a motion, a second. Yes, and we do have a time certain, right? Okay, so you want to reframe your, all right, so we have a motion to postpone till December's Quorum Court meeting, a second by JP Deacons. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that won't be moved to the December meeting. Counselor, will you go ahead and read item 8?
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustments.
And that's just on this first, second read, so that'll just move on to the December meeting unless you guys make a motion to move it to a third reading. JP Duncan?
I move to take it to a third reading.
Okay, JP, well, we got a motion to move to third reading.
That's for this.
We have a second? A second, is that all in a voice?
Yeah, but it's
All-
gotta be 10 votes.
All in favor? Those opposed? No. Okay, Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Yes, JP Duncan, JP Pond. This is item number 8, and it's on its second reading. It's just been motioned to move to a third reading, and that's what the vote is. And so, where were you, Ms. Patty? Go ahead.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deacons. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson.
That's only 9, is that correct? Okay, so it will go on to the next month's agenda. Item 9, JP Sue Madison.
No, it's just on the second.
Oh, that's right, okay, that's right, that just got moved to December. Item 10, JP Pond.
No. Item
Oh.
9 is on the second reading, so.
So JP Sue Madison. Yes.
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment.
All right, so it's on the second reading. It'll either go to next month or unless there's a motion to move it to a third.
Motion to move to advance to third reading, please.
All right, there's a motion to move to the third and the second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, move it to a third reading.
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustments.
Discussion. JP Hires?
Do we need to move to pass?
Now you need a motion to approve.
Let me make a motion to approve.
The conditional
ordinance
use denied.
denied.
There's been a motion to go ahead and deny the conditional use permit. Is there a second? A second by JP Hires. Discussion. JP Duncan.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So this was a really hard one. I went out to the property, met with the neighbors, and really appreciated the neighbors' passion on this. Based on the planning board's decision and the information presented to me, I couldn't, with confidence, agree with denying the conditional use permit. So therefore, I will be voting against this ordinance. Thank you.
Other discussion. JP Hires.
Thank you, Judge. I will vote to deny this permit, and I have several reasons why, so if you'll entertain me for a moment. As Mr. McFadden said, in 2014 and 2015, this CUP was denied by the Planning Commission and by this very body by a vote to 11-1 for the following reasons. safety concerns regarding the location of the proposed Hall Road and its intersection with Harmon Road. And I just wanted to note that nothing has changed about the location of this Hall Road, except for nothing has changed about any of this except for the name of the applicant, the administration of the executive branch of Washington County, and the speed limit. I spoke with Clay Grody, the former county engineer who did extensive studies on this site back in 2014 and on the speed limit. He stated that he believed the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit should not have been changed. Yet even with this speed limit change, the location of this Hall Road is problematic and still unsafe. And there's three reasons that this Hall Road is an issue. The first reason is that the site plan submitted to ADEQ by Mr. Terminella does not include the Hall Road in its mapping. This is a problem because the permit requires the Hall Road to be included as the 20 acres of affected land under the definitions of affected land. The lack of this Hall Road on his site plan is problematic for the permitting process. The same document provided by ADEQ under Part 6, Standard Permit Conditions states, if the permit is near a waterway, an undisturbed buffer zone of 100 feet must be maintained between the permit boundary and the ordinary high water mark of the waterway, and the current Hall Road is 20 feet away from a waterway. What that would mean is that in order to comply with ADEQ regulations, that Hall Road would have to be moved 80 feet closer to Harmon Hill. The new 35-mile-an-hour speed limit will not meet the safety standards needed for Harmon Road with this move. The next condition in this exact same document states that an undisturbed buffer zone of 50 feet must be maintained from any adjacent property line or right-of-way until reclamation begins. This Hall Road, which again, by definition, is part of the affected area and currently is located only 10 feet from an adjacent property line. A variance has not been asked for nor granted. To comply with ADEQ, the Hall Road will need to be moved 40 feet towards Harmon Hill. So again, the new speed limit will not meet safety standards. And in addition to these problems, I see that the second reason given in 2014 and 2015 was this dirt mine would be incompatible with the surrounding areas. Nothing has changed. And the third reason that this was denied back then was that the planning board was declining property rights, property values. Our own Russell Hill stated last month at this meeting that the property values of the neighbors would most certainly decrease. So when I look back at 2014 and 2015, when this court voted 11-1 to deny the exact same CUP with 5 members voting against, voting that way, I see that only the following things have changed. The speed limit has changed, the administration has changed, and the owner of the property has changed. But none of those things changes the issues of safety of this neighborhood, the incompatibility with the surrounding areas, and their declining property values. Thank you.
J.P. Jenkins and then J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I'm here today on behalf of the citizens of Weddington Woods. They're my neighbors. Those children that were up here speaking were both one is currently in my class. The other was in my class 2 years ago. I'm a bus driver. The safety of the children in Farmington that go to Farmington schools should weigh on your shoulders. I know what it's like to haul a bus up a road like that, and I can't even imagine being behind 100 trucks a day going through. Those are children, kindergarten through 12th grade children ride those school buses. And the time limit, even though Mr. Terminella has said that they did the traffic study and that they will keep the, twice a day, they will hold off the productivity for it. Buses run from 6:40 a.m. until 7:40 a.m. That is not even in the time frame that he gave to hold off production. Beyond that, Washington County Planning denial of property for this, Washington County Planning Division denied a CUP for this property, or denied this to move on in November 6, 2014. The reasons were for safety concerns, issues of compatibility, likelihood that this project will be injurious to the enjoyment of some of the other property in the surrounding areas, and the details included site distance. And then on February 4th, 2015, the denial was upheld by an 11-1 vote of the Quorum Court. Those voting for the denial included Justices Bowman, Ecke, Harbison, S. Madison, E. Madison, and Pond, with moving testimony if you read the minutes. There are two types of open-cut mining permits. There's individual or general. Mr. Terminella has a general permit. The general permit includes language pertaining to haul roads, buffer zones, and I believe that this is pertinent to your decision-making today. The haul road has been taken out of the picture somehow, but if you look at a general permit, it states affected land means the area of land where open-cut mining has been or is taking place, or upon which soil has been deposited, or any other surface disturbance, including haul roads. That's the affected land. It's in the language. The haul road is in the language of this general permit. In addition to the general permit, it includes a statement of basis. The statement requires permits to adhere to Regulation 15 of the Arkansas Pollution Control and Ecology Commission. And Chapter 3, Part A of that regulation states, it shall be unlawful for any operator to engage in open-cut mining without first obtaining all appropriate permits from the department. As of 2 days ago, on the ADEQ website, Mr. Terminella's permit for stormwater is still pending. He doesn't have that permit. Farmington Public Schools, Weddington Area Fire Department have expressed safety concerns. The line of sight issue is huge concern for safety. In addition, just the general CUP requirements aren't being met. Adequate drainage, compatibility with the surrounding area, how it will be detrimental or endanger public health. I've driven that hill. How many of you have driven the hill? Seen it, been there? Okay. All right. So can you imagine over 100 trucks per day hauling, huffing and puffing to get up that road? How could that not basically stop or impede traffic each time a truck pulled out? I worry that whoever votes for this will be proven negligent because of the paper trail of evidence. It's all here. I've done the research. I've sat for hours with this stuff, you guys. I'm a strong believer in property rights. I fully understand the great need for red dirt, especially with the 113% population increase last year. I get it. But there's a place for this where safety isn't a concern and neighbors aren't affected. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Jenkins. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. So I've thought long and hard about this issue since the last meeting, and feel confident that I can vote on this issue with impartiality because I voted on it a few years ago. And I think were I to change my vote from my prior vote, I think it would subject this court's decision to scrutiny as arbitrary and capricious. I don't think anything's changed. The land is the same. The circumstances are the same. All that's changed is this administration, some members of this court, and the applicant. And those issues don't change my view of this. Safety continues to be a concern. The sight distance continues to be a concern. And I'm concerned at what I see as an effort of this administration to somehow eliminate those safety issues by trying to change things that are unchangeable. The speed limit has always been posted on that road as 45 miles per hour because I specifically remember that issue coming up last time, and we were told there was a review by an outside engineer, and it was determined that that speed limit should not change. Here, the applicant asked at a meeting with planning, look at this right away, clear it out, post the speed limits, shoot the sight distance. You do that for me, county. And then what happens? Within a matter of days, people from the road department go out, don't talk to the residents, don't do anything formal that's documented, and behold, 35 miles per hour becomes the new speed limit. Then we conduct 2 studies on the speed to find out that it hasn't slowed down the traffic. 45 miles per hour, 48 miles per hour, whether school's in session or not. I don't know how a sight distance issue gets eliminated. It's because it's not eliminated. I see here it looks like maybe an effort to sort of keep the residents hidden from the details, like Mr. Johnson described. It's like they're not getting facts. They get documents that look like, where is it? They get documents that are blacked out. I don't know what I did with it, but they do FOIA requests and they get documents that are blacked out, markers blacked out. That doesn't comply with FOIA. What are we hiding? What's there to hide in this issue? Safety, this is a road heavily traveled by ordinary citizens, by school buses, by emergency vehicles. If in 2014 it wasn't safe, it's still not safe. We heard from our own assessor that property values, when a dirt pit goes in, decline. Our assessor, the one in the county charged with assessing property values, said that. Property values go down. That criteria is met. The compatibility issue is unquestionable. That there are dirt pit mines in this general area because they were there before the county had zoning makes no difference, because Weddington Woods is right across from the entrance to this dirt mine with more than 300 single-family residences, and it's been there longer. Those people deserve protection of their way of life, their property values, their safety, their enjoyment of their land. And I can say with impartiality that this is the best decision that we can make. And I'm concerned that we're not giving our citizens a fair shake in this, that we seem to be making it harder for them to get information in this process, that we make them FOIA things and we draw it out and they feel like they don't get access to things. And that's not what I want citizens to feel like when they deal with county government. It should be better. And I hope that we will do better for our citizens. So I will be voting to deny this. And I appreciate everyone for being here and staying so involved and dedicated to this issue. Thank you, Mr. Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Madison. J.P. Pond.
A few points have been brought up that I've seen in several situations. And number one, this is not the only development where I've seen speed limits. It might be the first time I saw where it was brought to the road department's attention and they actually went and changed the speed limit, which I'm glad they did. And I'll tell you why. Win, lose, or draw on this development, where safety is concerned, I do not want to see that speed limit go back up. I do not want to think about school bus drivers thinking 45 is safe on that hilly curvy hill. It's possible that they came and saw because it attracted their attention that speed limit needed to be changed. I can't tell you, I don't read the minds of the road department, but since it was brought to their attention, I'm glad they changed it. The ADEQ permit, I don't believe that anybody carries on, decides to do a development and gets around the ADEQ even with county approval. I believe when this is approved, it's as per with ADEQ approval and they're receiving the permit. That's just two of the things. I am not able to find any reason to turn this down that is going to pass muster with circuit judge in a circuit court. And that's gonna be unbiased for certain, because local circuit judges most likely are gonna recuse themselves from this because of its political volatility. You're gonna get an unbiased circuit judge, probably from Little Rock, come in and oversee this, where it won't be touching anyone politically in that case. Unfortunately for us, we have to look at this as unbiased as in an unbiased way as much as we possibly can. And sometimes we have to make very unpopular decisions. It's like the fellow said, I guess that's why they pay us the big bucks. I have very long-time friends who are very put out with me over comments I made before on this. But I have to remember that I'm under oath. I've been under oath since I was 18 years old to uphold the laws, the Constitution of the state of Arkansas, the Constitution of the United States of America. And however I decided to vote on this, I really never know until the last comment's made. Otherwise, why would any of you waste your breath getting up and speaking? I hate it that it's gotten to the point where nobody sees anybody else's side. If I hold my hand up like this, and I see my hand, but everybody else on the other side of the room, my hand looks different. Thank you very much.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. J.P. Harbison and then J.P. Madison.
I'm not against Mr. Terminella mining red dirt, but what I am against is using Harmon Road and that hill. I voted against it because in 2014 because of that dangerous hill, and I will vote against it again. I just think there's an alternative way out of that piece of property, and that, yes, it will be difficult maybe, or a little bit more expensive. But I think in the long run, safety is important, and also the drivers that drive those trucks up that hill are not gonna like driving up that hill, because it's difficult to drive that size of a truck up a hill and shift and shift and shift. So, you know, it's, I just think that an alternative road needs to be pursued. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Harbison, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I want to thank my colleagues for all the incredible research and hard work you've done on this, and I won't repeat what you've so forcefully stated, but I would like to say or point out that Weddington Woods is one of the oldest subdivisions, if you will, within the county proper. And newcomers continue to look towards Weddington Woods as a good residential place to live, and the county should be proud of that. I mean, most subdivisions are located within a city, but we're proud to have Weddington Woods still in the county. And I think out of respect for people that have chosen that as their home, they deserve some of the same peace and quiet that those of us in subdivisions in the city have. And from all that's been said, I think the only thing that has truly changed from the previous denial was this business of changing the speed limit. And I do drive Harmon Road quite a bit. And I think we'd have to add considerably to the sheriff's staff to enforce this speed limit on Hardeman Road with any meaningful, long-standing respect for the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. I mean, that's nice to put up a sign, but getting people to change their ways and follow the signs is another project. This is a dangerous situation out there. And I think somebody has pointed out that the existing dirt mines in that area were from a long time ago when the county had different standards, if any. I want to ask you all to please, in your hearts, consider supporting this denial motion.
Thank you, J.P. Madison. J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. You know, I voted against this appeal 4 years ago, whenever it was. And, you know, I think I've developed a lot of perspective about this whole situation. Number one is property rights. And I believe Mr. Terminella bought this property with intent to mine, and he's made that very clear from the outset. The other thing is that we have a county that's responsible to improve roads to accommodate any new businesses. We know Benton County just had a great big operation going up there by Gentry. There's been major improvements in that road to accommodate that business. And our county has a responsibility to improve the roads out here to accommodate the industry going in there right now. The thing that scares me most about this thing, it sounds like we're trying to legislate who uses county roads or state roads instead of who gets to mine dirt. I don't think we have a right to tell somebody you can't drive these county roads and others they can. That's a primary issue that we got to consider. So I'm going to vote to oppose this because I think that these guys have a right to drive these county roads just like you and I. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Are you speaking on the Weddington Mines?
No.
Okay, that's that time for public comments on Weddington Mines.
Do I need to move?
Yes.
I was in line.
Good evening, Mr. Judge, Mr. Lester, members of the court. My name's Tom Terminella. I live here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Washington County, and I just want to correct a few things for the record that I've heard. Here again, I need to address my comments to the judge, but it's clear to me that most of the folks here on the court have not driven County Road 31 lately. West Tree Service and Ozarks Electric have been out there for weeks clearing the right-of-way. The sight line that they talk about being inadequate has basically doubled the sight distance because of the right-of-way clearing of.
I'm gonna ask you guys, you can come and get in line and have your comments. Go ahead.
They called, matter of fact, yesterday to get permission to be on the property, and I asked them not only to clear their right-of-way, but to get with the road department to make sure that all the right-of-way is cleared in this area that is a big concern for everybody. Of course, safety is most important to me. I'm not looking to get anybody, run over on any county or state roads. But I've noticed that it's been 3 days since I've been out there. I've met with the University of Arkansas and their facilities director. They gave permission to clear the other dangerous 90-degree corner down by the water tower. I saw where that was done 2 or 3 days ago. The gentleman at West Tree Service that works on behalf of Ozarks Electric called yesterday indicating that he would be improving the sight line and easements for all that area with the new overhead that was just directed last fall to service Weddington Woods. So that being said, Ms. Ecke's not here tonight. I understand the vote for the approval got moved off till December. I'll be back in December. But at the end of the day, since the last meeting, we have cleared a right-of-way all the way through the property. The landowner on Riches Road that adjoins this property to the south, I guess they found a chainsaw or something. They've cleared their right-of-way that adjoins this. And going forward, my intent is, here again, being permitted through ADEQ for an open cut mining operation to move our minerals. We're going to move our minerals, and we're going to do it safely and respectfully.
30
But
seconds.
I see no reason that we can't use Riches Road to enter or exit, for that matter. If the concern is the hill in Harmon Road, there's 2 county roads that adjoin this property. And here again, I would respectfully ask you, Judge, to employ the county road department and the officials to properly clear any necessary right-of-way for Riches or County Road 31 to make it safer for the public. One additional question. Ms. Jenkins, you're still driving buses? Did I hear that? You're still driving buses delivering
Tom.
kids?
Thank you,
Okay.
Tom.
I just
Terminello.
wanted to make sure of
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Terminello.
Thank you, Judge.
Good evening. I'm Jim Gallagher. I live at 12279 Martin Road in Fayetteville. And thank you for giving me the time to speak with all of you tonight. You've heard an awful lot of discussion, and I won't.
Can I ask the audience
Time out,
to calm?
Point of order, I think Mr. Terminello needs to be escorted out of the room. He is shouting obscenities at a
JP
JP.
Madison. Okay. We're asking the audience to be still. Come on, go ahead and take your seat and finish your comments. Who's that? Is that Sheriff?
Until you restore order, I'll wait.
Cantrell, can you watch these guys? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I think that spoke more to the question than anything.
State your name and what's your...
I did.
Okay. I missed it. I'm sorry because of...
There was a lot of
What
yelling
was it?
going on. If you like, let's
Mr.
restart the
Gallagher?
clock.
Go
and
ahead, Mr.
start it.
Gallagher.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the JPs for the comments you've made to help enlighten your colleagues. It's very important. Nothing has changed. It's still dangerous. It's still an abuse of the properties around us. Everybody wants to talk about property rights, and that man wanted to talk about his property rights. He bought that land to do this work, but he also bought that land knowing he did not have an approval the day he bought it, and he had to go through this process. Please don't act like he already had the approval when he got the land. He didn't. He knew he was taking a chance, and if you choose to turn him down, then his bet paid off in the wrong way. That's unfortunate. As for the roads, who's going to use them, who's not going to use them? If you don't think that maintaining safety of people on your roads is of paramount importance to your job, you made the right choice by not filing for re-election. Thank you.
Laurie Marshall, 1106 Ranch Drive in Springdale. In regards to Mr. Bowman's comments that the county has responsibility to improve roads to support businesses, this never came up as a topic of discussion in 2014 based on comments of the JPs who were on the Quorum Court at the time. I wholeheartedly agree that the county should provide infrastructure, including road support, to support businesses and citizens, but not to a single citizen who bought property knowing that that infrastructure was not in place and who clearly, as we've just seen, has no respect for the authority of this elected body. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Max Childs. This is my daughter Kylie Childs. We live on Greenboro Road. My elderly parents, ages 80 and 90, live on Redbud there in Weddington Woods. I heard Mr. Terminella at the last meeting compliment J.P. Harbison because she came up with a solution to this. I think maybe what we've left out of this debate is solutions. Well, a huge part of the roads across this country were built without strip mines, and they were built by adding farm ponds. I could take you and point out hundreds of farm ponds across South Arkansas that were built by people who needed fill material. This debate doesn't need to happen. The developer wouldn't need to tie up his hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in property. He could improve farming, thus business, thus the standard of living in our area simply by digging free farm ponds. We wouldn't have to fight over this. Your time, which is very, very valuable, could be spent on something besides this knockdown dragout. I see this leading, if this strip mine or the strip mine over on Greenboro are permitted, it looks like, and I'm from a family with several attorneys, this looks like it's headed toward class action lawsuits. It looks like the only people who will really profit from this will be the attorneys. I love Washington County. The Bible tells us blessed are the peacemakers, and while I can be extremely outspoken, I think we need to find a way to make peace in this. Mr. Bowman over here probably won't admit it, but we have a family connection. He went to school to my granddad. At this moment, with what he's voting for, I can't say I'm super fond of Mr. Bowman, but I'll tell you something really, really nice about him, okay? He started and found the funding for an educational scholarship at SAU, and it's named after Floyd Childs, and that was my grandmother. Little bitty quiet lady of Italian extraction, and she didn't wear her Italian blood on her shoulder as a way to start a fight like somebody did in this room recently, or to try to feel sorry for themselves. She was proud to be Italian. But one thing that she said, and I think Mr. Bowman possibly even heard this, and she heard it again and again. It was an old poem that went like this. He was dead right as he sped along, but he was just as dead as if he'd been wrong.
10 seconds.
4 experts testified to you that this was a death trap. You know who those experts were. If you, as the leadership of this county, vote to approve this thing and somebody gets killed, you're as guilty as murder as if you held a pistol to a child's head and pulled the trigger.
Thank you, Mr. Child.
Hello, I'm Susan Jones. I live on Dogwood. I'm out in Weddington Woods. I'm just here to reinforce what my neighbors have said, that you've got the studies from these engineers in front of you, and to deny that there's the sight of line of sight, that they have told you numerous times now that there is not a line of sight, and so you're looking to get the county sued, I believe, and you're giving up your right of tort, your tort liability, because you do know about it, and you're voting against it anyway. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Ms. Susan. All right, we're gonna go ahead and take the roll, Ms. Patty.
Hold on, wait, you need to state what
What, the ordinance denying the CUP for Weddington Mines. J.P. Johnson.
State the motion again, please.
The motion is a ordinance denying the conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board. So that's denying.
The motion
CUP.
is to approve the motion to deny.
That's correct. That's correct. Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
No.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacon.
No.
Sam Duncan.
No.
Eva Madison. Oh, Shonda Washington? Shonda? Yes. Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
No.
And Lance Johnson.
No.
And so that passes. All right. That ordinance passes. Okay. Item 10, JP Pine. All right. Thank you, guys. JP Pine, item 10. Item 10.
An ordinance increasing the salary of the Director of the Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Affairs budget for 2019.
Hit your microphone.
Only has to be read one time, is that correct?
It does if it gets enough votes to pass one with one reading, which would require 10 votes, but yes, it's an appropriation ordinance.
Move to approve.
So a motion to approve. Give a second.
Can I ask one question here?
Let me just. Okay, JP Lemming, what was your question?
Lance, maybe I need to ask you, because you brought this motion up. If we approve this, does these people, is one of this ones that we don't give the 3% to?
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's 2%, I'm sorry. So that's, what we're voting on, it'd be all these would not be getting it. Correct. Okay, thank you.
And this is obviously one of the four. J.P. Harbison asked us in the beginning of the budget session not to bring into the personnel. I did not. I shared that when I was covering the budgets that I would bring that up at the time, and I did. These are the four that I said that I wanted to have additional funds for and to get to a fair wage. J.P. Harbison.
The only thing that I remember was that you asked for an additional person to work in the Veterans Affairs office, and I asked that to be set aside. That I didn't,
No, and during the budget session, I said that I have four people that I wanted to give a fair increase to, and I said I would push that to the back because we said we'll take all personnel, whether it be vacancies or additions, to a later time, which I did.
Well,
we funded these. It's been paid for. It's not an add-on to the.
if they had
rest.
been in the budget, then they would have been approved. But anyway,
Okay.
There's a misunderstanding. Thank you.
All right. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I think I'm even more confused by J.P. Harbison's comment. Is this position with the funding mentioned in this ordinance that we haven't adopted, is that in the budget?
No.
None of these are in the
That's
budget?
correct. That's correct.
So if they were to pass, then the budget would have to be amended if it's passed?
Correct.
This sounds very confusing
Okay.
to me.
J.P.
Thank-
Pine.
I'm gonna take part of the blame on this. These raises came up before last month, and we had a long drug-out meeting, and I chose to postpone these until tonight. But out of trying to be considerate and fair to the persons the employees who this affects. Thank you.
J.P. Duncan.
So I know that our current budget chair and former budget chairs have gone to the elected officials and asked for them to go back and reduce their budgets. And the judge has consistently done that, consistently reduced his budget. And when we met, it was very clear that you had 4 raises. So I'll be supporting not just this item, but 10, 11, 12, and 13, because the judge has reduced his budget year over year, and I believe that he should get to reward people and bring them up to fair market value if he's the one who actually is doing what we're asking him to do. So I'll be in support of this.
Thank you, J.P. Duncan. J.P. Harbison, then J.P. Madison.
May I ask our controller, Shannon Worthen, how much additional money this will, if all of these are approved, how much additional money is going to be required in the budget?
It would be a total of $51,366.14. Additional salary plus the Social Security and the retirement.
Yeah.
So,
She was wanting all of them, not just one.
yeah, it's 51,000 for all 8.
But it doesn't include the Social Security and retirement, so,
Yeah, so it'd be additional 15.32% for retirement and an additional 7.65% for Social Security on top of these amounts, this amount.
1,000 times 8 is what you're saying?
let's see, 15. It'll be 22
That'd be
Two.
51,366 times 8, is that what you're saying?
times 22.
51,366, 14 times 7.65% plus 15.32, so it's 1 point, whatever that adds up to, 1.22.
What is that? You're a numbers guy.
Well, it's 22.22. It's
Yeah.
over 20%.
Yeah, it's almost 23%, so you'd multiply 51,366.14 times
22.
1.2297 for the total effect on the budget.
It adds $11,714, so it's.
60, about $62,000.
$62,000.
Right.
Okay. J.P. Harbison, was that your question?
That's my question.
Okay.
I just want everybody to know how much additional money. It's a little over $62,000. So, anyway.
Thank you, Shannon. J.P., who?
I think it's J.P. Madison.
Did you have a question? No. No. Yes. We got a second?
Doesn't need one.
It doesn't,
Begun.
oh, is this just run read?
When,
Go ahead, what's your comment?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Judge. I will not be supporting these raises tonight, and it's because we have managed to give our county employees a 2% raise. We couldn't even dig in and find $300,000 to up that to 3%. That means some of our lowest paid county employees are gonna get a quarter an hour, 25 cents. And we're looking at giving people thousands of dollars. I don't know how we can do that. We're gonna tell the hundreds of hardworking county employees that don't make a lot of money that they're not worthy of a big raise. They're not worthy of 3%, but other people are worth $20,000, $30,000. And I have to disagree. Our judge has not lowered his budget. His expenditures in 2017 were $362,000. His requested budget for next year is $443,000. The IT budget expenditures in 2017 were $1,252,000. The requested budget for the IT department next year is $1,451,000. Budgets are going up. That doesn't justify pay increases to 4 individuals to the tune of $60,000 to $70,000. If we want to give big raises, we need to dig in and give all of our county employees big raises.
Okay, so we move on to item,
no, there's a motion
item,
on the floor.
who put that? J.P. Bond?
We have the motion on the floor to pass this one.
Now it's public comment time.
And And I would like for y'all to consider each one of these individually. And we're not talking about just on every one of these, because it was brought up, maybe it's out of order, but it was brought up 4 different employees, and we're talking about one employee here. This one in particular, and the next one will be that one in particular. And some of these are not just handing out somebody a raise. There's situations here where somebody was moved to a position that had a considerable amount more responsibility and a considerable amount more workload. And so I never talk about what people deserve. When I consider these, I consider what they have earned. My personal feelings about what somebody deserves cannot be included in this. It has to be what they earned, what kind of service they provide for the county, for the taxpayers of Washington County. Somewhere or other, a motion has to be left out of this. It has to be something that we determine, not something we feel like. Thank you.
J.P. Bowman and then J.P. Yanez.
Thank you, Judge. You know, Judge, I was under the impression that you were going to absorb the cost of these raises within your existing budget. Is that right or wrong?
We did that, yes.
That you were going to just absorb this into, so it will not increase the total budget?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Point of information, we're being asked to appropriate money. Point of
JP Yanez.
information.
Just want to can we bring up the 3% raise? I don't know if it's germane currently, but I would want to look at all the raises together, just to ensure that we're on the same page with all raises.
So right now, we're going through the increases that the assessor, the judge, and the sheriff has asked for, and then it will come down to the final budget. But go ahead, J.P. Harbison.
I will suggest that we postpone these until we vote on the budget, because I believe that there will be a motion to increase the salaries to 3% instead of the 2%. And so if that is an issue with some of the people on here, then why don't we just postpone these raises until we do the vote on the budget?
J.P. Madison.
We're being asked to appropriate money, which means they're not being absorbed in budgets. And we were just told by our comptroller that if we pass these, we will have to find $60,000 to $70,000 new money for next year's budget. So J.P. Bowman, they're not being absorbed in a budget. We're being asked to appropriate new money for them.
That's 8 people. Okay, J.P. Harbison.
Postpone this until we do the budgets.
So we got a motion to move the budget before the raises.
Well, we can either move it up or move these down, whatever.
What number is that?
We're down to 20 on the agenda. It's 28, 29.
So it's a motion to suspend the rules and move.
It's 27.
All right, so we got a motion to suspend the rule and move 27 now. Suspend the rule to move item number 27 up. Pardon me?
Well, we could do it that way.
Point of order, Judge. If we're gonna consider them tonight, the proper motion is to table them.
Are you gonna table, we are gonna address these tonight?
Some other time, the proper motion is.
It's a postpone. Okay, so J.P. Harbison, would that be
I want to just postpone it in this meeting until we vote on the budget.
table?
Or-
Okay.
No, I don't want to table it, because if you table it, you move it to another meeting.
You can table tonight.
Table means that you're going to reconsider it tonight. Postpone means you're considering it at a different meeting.
Oh, okay.
All right. So a motion to
Table.
suspend the rules to
No,
table.
it's not a suspend the rules if she's just tabling it.
We have,
Okay, all right, so we have a motion to table the items 10 through
7.
16?
correct.
10 through 16. JP Pine?
To clarify, I believe all Ms. Harbison's talking about doing is settling the budget this evening and then
Voting.
That's correct.
voting on these. And if it makes it any simpler, I'm the sponsor of these ordinances in question. Is it simpler for me to say I'll pull this until a later time in the meeting?
Well,
in
that's what she had
tonight's
said.
meeting?
That was her move to
that
table. and-
Yes, okay.
Did you have a question? Yes.
Well, there's,
Okay. So we have
there's a motion on the floor.
a motion on the floor to table items 10 through, okay. We have a motion on the floor to table 10 through.
The motion is still there.
That's right. JP Harbison put a motion on the floor. Okay. Motion on the floor,
10 through,
10 through 16.
right.
JP Duncan?
So don't we, if we figure out the budget and then any of these raises get approved, then we're gonna have to go back and amend the budget we just approved?
Correct.
That didn't make a lot of sense to me. So if it does get a second, then I'm gonna vote against it.
It does have a second.
She withdrew her second.
Oh, you withdrew it?
All right, so we're back to item 10. Any other discussion on item 10? Public discussion. Any public comment? All right.
So the question is,
We have an ordinance increasing the salary of the Director of Veterans Affairs for the 2019 budget. And Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
How many? All right, so that's 9, so I'll go to a second reading. Item 11, JP Pine.
Move to suspend the rules and, okay, can't do that. All right, number 11,
Read that one. Number 11. Item 11.
an ordinance increasing the salary of the county attorney in the county attorney budget for 2019. That's 11.1.
Yeah.
So I moved to pass 11.1.
Got motion and a second. JP Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate very much the duties of our county attorney and the time spent serving Washington County. However, I personally am not going to be able to support the approval of this raise. I feel like it's excess when we need to focus on our budget concerns and our county employees' morale. We just recently debated capping employees at a measly 2 to 3% raise for the next year. We voted against a $1 raise for Ozark Regional Transit drivers. So I believe this kind of raise is unsound at the time, and I feel like it would deflate the morale of our county employees that are working hard every single day, that deserve more, in my opinion, than 2 to 3%. This is a huge raise. And
although I'm very appreciative of the job, like I said, I can't support it. Thank you.
Have a motion on the floor for item 11. Was there a second? And J.P. Duncan is a second. Any other discussion? Any public comments?
Brandy Weaver of Prairie Grove, Arkansas. I find this raise in excess considering that all the recent kept cases have been lost.
Okay, thank you.
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. This really does have the feel of enriching the good old boys network, and it does not have a good feel to me, and it feels less comfortable the more the debate seems to be happening. And I really think our county really needs to, in light of the uncertainty about the budget now, we really need to be thinking about where our accountability lies and where we need to be taking care of our people. And I don't really see, I have not really heard any kind of a defense of why these particular people should have these big raises when there seems to be a dearth of money. And it really feels like the county needs to be taking this very, very seriously, and I'm not hearing that.
Thank you.
I thought I'd give a comment. Joe Maynard, I live in Fayetteville. You know, I've paid attorneys more than I'd ever want to, and I think you get what you pay for. So you ought to consider that. I had a talk with the governor soon after he took office, and talked about the what they call the skill positions in government, and that if you take them as a whole across the board, there are certain skill positions, and the market dictates those things. So, you know, I think if you want good people in skill positions, that, you know, you need to pay them, or you're going to get what you pay for.
Good evening, Your Honor.
Come up some so we can hear you in the mic.
I say good evening, Your Honor.
Right.
Janelle Bradford Smiley. I'm a District 7 resident. I'm also a retired attorney. I'm aware of student loans. I am aware of what attorney pay scales look like. But I am shocked that anyone would get a $30,000 raise in 1 year. I think it's quite unprecedented, and particularly when one considers that the county employees at large are not being given significant increases. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Sherry Main. I'm in, unfortunately, District 7, unfortunately. But anyway, I just wanted to comment and say it is a salaried position, that the job is salaried when you take it without knowing that you're going to get any huge raises, but it is salaried position when you take it, so I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lou Sharp, and I just want to say that, you know, giving one person almost a 30% increase when you're holding everybody else at 2% or 3% is absolutely outrageous. I mean, I pay my taxes, and I came out of a corporate environment. You do 3% increases across the board, and you say it's being based on fair market value. Well, when you pay to have these studies done, did everybody else get a raise too? That's not how you do things. You balance all of this out, and you do things in increments.
I think it's outrageous that you would consider this, and there's no doubt that people are doing their jobs, but you just don't arbitrarily pick out one person and give them a $30,000 raise. It's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Again, it's ordinance on the county attorney. 11 point, yes, 11.1.
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming.
No.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Tied.
What was that? I'm sorry, I hear you. So it did not?
Seven.
It's 7-7.
Okay, that moves on to the second one. 12.1, JP Pond.
An ordinance increasing the salary of the grants administrator in the grants department budget for 2019. I'll move to pass 12.1.
Second.
Motion to move 12.1, a second by JP Lemming. Any other discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
All right, moves to the second reading. Item 13.1, JP Pond, 13.1. JP Pond?
An ordinance increasing the salary of the purchasing manager in the general services budget for 2019. Move to pass 13.1.
Motion to pass 13.1. We have a second, JP Deakins. Any other discussion? Public comments?
Lotus Tiffany Fayetteville. I just want to make sure everybody understands that just because myself and other people in the room did not necessarily raise objection to the last vote and the first vote that was also adopted, just because we did not speak at that moment did not mean that we thought that was okay. All these big raises are not okay. They're not okay. I just want to make sure that you understand that.
Thank you.
Brandy Weaver of Prairie Grove, I agree with her. When you're talking about a 2% raise countywide for all the employees, that's including your sheriff's department, your office personnel, your circuit clerks, and then you're giving these big $30,000, $48,000 raises to other county employees. That's what it's showing up there in the numbers, is like a $48,000. But still, these big jump in raises, that is excessive and unfair to all county personnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
That moves to a second reading, okay? Item 14.1, J.P. Pond.
An ordinance changing the title of Deputy Assessor 2 to Amendment 79 Administrator in the County Assessor's Budget. Move to pass
A motion-
14.1.
Motion to pass 14.1. A second by J.P. Jenkins. Any discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Passes.
That one passes, all right. Item 14.1 does pass. Item 15.1, J.P. Pond.
And an ordinance changing the title of the Deputy Assessor 1 to Deputy Assessor 2 in the County Assessor's Budget for 2019. Move to pass 15.1.
Motion to pass 15.1, second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? J.P. Duncan.
I find it funny that the first ordinance that's not under the judge is passed unanimously. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone else, but that blows my mind that people that work hard and have deserve a raise aren't getting it just because of the administration. So anyways.
J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to clarify that it's my decision to vote no against those raises has nothing to do with the administration. It has to do with worrying about the average folk that work for Washington County and the amount of these raises. Thank you.
Any other discussion, public comments? J.P. Madison.
These were also grade changes that were approved. These aren't just raises, they were actually formal grade changes where the job actually did change. So that's the difference in the votes.
Okay. J.P., public comments. Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
All right, 15.1 passes. Item 16.1, J.P. Pond.
An ordinance changing the title of personnel positions in the jail budget for 2019 and appropriating the amount of a salary of $17.34.96 in the jail budget for 2019.
Second.
Got
Move to pass and a second.
a motion to pass 16.1. Was that a second, J.P. Lemming?
Yes.
Okay. And a second, any discussion? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
And Lance Johnson. Oh, it's gone.
That one does pass. All right. Item 17.1, J.P. Harbison.
Mr. Lester, would you read the title of 17.1, please?
An ordinance recognizing the amount of $67,500 in the Rural Community Grant Fund for 2019 and appropriating said amount to the Road Department budget for 2019.
These are one of the grants that we have in the road department, and it needs to be moved to the road department budget. I move that we pass 17.1.
Second.
Motion to pass 17.1, second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yonez. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Andrea Jenkins. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
So, yeah.
Pass.
It does pass on, all right. Consent agenda, JP Harbison.
All right, on the consent agenda, we have the revenue for the crisis stabilization unit and an ordinance transferring $16,000 in the JDC budget for food. I move that we pass both 18.1 and 18.2.
Second.
Council, will you read both of those? By title only.
An ordinance anticipating revenue totaling $860,804.32 in the Crisis Stabilization Unit Grant Fund and appropriating $860,804.32 from the CSU Grant Fund to various budgets for 2019. And an ordinance transferring $16,116.55 from the salaries part-time line item to the food line item in the JDC budget for 2019.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yonez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Andrea Jenkins. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, the consent agenda items pass. That was tabled. Item 19 was tabled. No, that was pushed, yeah, next month, right? And so.
Item 20.
See, 20.
No, there was a CUP ordinance for Ann for that cemetery, for that church.
Where's that one?
It's
Oh,
not on here. It was
JP Harbison, you added the
What have I got numbered?
18, the church one.
Oh, okay. I move to pass the cup at Blackburn Church. It's they're building a new church, so I move that we pass that.
Second.
Motion on, I guess, item 18, a second. Any
Yes.
discussion? JP Lemming, did you
I
have?
was just asking, has it been through the CUPs like it's
Oh,
supposed
yeah,
to?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, JP Madison.
I just was curious what the vote was. I'm sorry, may I ask that of our planning director? Okay. It is?
I was just gonna say, I don't remember what the exact vote
Okay.
was.
Oh, six.
Thanks, Nathan.
6 with 1 absent, so 6 yeses, okay. And have you heard comments that you think this might be appealed? Okay.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Ms. Patty? The ordinance, a motion to pass is conditional use permit for the Blackman Church, or Church on Blackman.
Was the ordinance read?
Okay,
Yes.
do we have that one?
Title only.
Harbison, did you read it? Go ahead.
No.
Do you have it? Go ahead and read
I
it.
thought we read the title.
Yes, go ahead and read the title.
Okay, do you
I don't have
have
it.
that ordinance? I don't have it right in front of me. It's got shuffled.
It's there.
Which one is it?
Emergency ordinance ratifying the conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Department
It's
for the
been
Blackburn
granted.
community.
It slipped through and didn't
Okay.
get put on the original agenda.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I've shuffled it in my papers. Brian, could you read the title,
You got it.
please?
Here's one.
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board.
All right, this is for a church, a new church at Blackburn. It's located near Devil's Den. I move that we pass this.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
just wanted to clarify for purposes of our record, this is item 19-I-122, just because it has the same title as the one we tabled. I just wanted to make sure that it was very clear. In the
Well, we
upper
need to-
left-hand corner, it says item 19-I-122, as opposed to the one that was in our agenda with the same title. Is that correct, Ms. Patty?
Ms. Jenkins?
Okay.
Yes, but
Thank you,
it's got
Jenkins.
Blackburn Community
Okay.
Covenant Church in it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Judge. I just was, wanted to note within the CUP paperwork that it said a total of 13 notices were mailed by surrounding property owners within 30 feet, and only one comment was received in favor of the project. It was not contentious, and there was no public discussion, so, no, I will absolutely.
Public comments? All right, Ms. Patty.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemon. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
And so the ordinance, the emergency ordinance for the Blackburn Community Covenant Church passes. Item 20, J.P. Bowman.
Would you read Mr. Lester by title only, 21? I'm sorry?
There's no title. There's no ordinance.
Okay, all right. Well, this is all about moving on with the proposal to put this on the on the voting, out to the voters.
No,
to
this is
raise-
item 20.
I'm
Item
sorry?
20.
Oh,
Item
20?
20.
I'm sorry.
Sale of cancer support.
Okay, I'm with you now. All right. This is a proposal that was brought to us by Washington Regional about using an existing building to sell that and make room for a cancer. Would you guys come ahead and explain to us, please, ma'am, explain to the court what's going on?
Certainly. Judge, members of the court, my name is Tim Hudson. I'm Executive Director of the Washington Regional Medical Foundation, the fundraising arm for Washington Regional Medical System. Thank you for the opportunity for me and our CEO, Larry Shackelford, to present information to you regarding plans for our new cancer support home. We appreciate the opportunity to present to the County Services Committee earlier this month. Some of you might be familiar with the current facility on Woolsey Avenue in Fayetteville behind what is now the UAMS Northwest Campus. I should add that this particular piece of property is not part of that original VA footprint or the UAMS campus. For more than 20 years, Washington Regional has operated the cancer support home to meet non-medical needs of cancer patients and their families. The mission of the home is to provide hope and comfort to those learning to live with cancer, particularly the uninsured, underinsured, and minority populations in the area. All programs and services are provided at no cost to the patient or families and are available to all in need, with special emphasis given to the medically underserved. Cancer support home services are not limited to Washington Regional patients. Services include overnight lodging, financial assistance, cancer screenings, patient navigation, counseling, diagnostic services, a wig and mastectomy supplies boutique, survivorship programs, and support groups. The majority of our clients are low-income, uninsured, or underinsured. Each year, over 1,500 cancer patients, caregivers, and community members visit the home. Again, all provided at no cost to the families. These are funded through gifts and grants that we raise through Komen for the Cure, Cancer Challenge, Arkansas Cancer Coalition, Walmart Foundation, Grateful Patients, and so forth. The current building at over 90 years old is no longer sufficient to meet the needs of the people we serve. We've launched a fundraising campaign to build a brand new home on Longview, which is close to Washington Regional, Highlands Oncology, and other providers. The public campaign was launched. $4.1 million is the goal. To date, we've raised $2.9 million, with another $1.5 million out there in proposals under consideration. I will not pass a plate tonight, but if you're interested, I'll talk to you later. Now I'd like to ask our CEO, Larry Shackelford, to tell you what we are asking specifically of the court in relation to the current facility on Woolsey.
Good
Thank you,
evening.
Judge.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for your time this evening. In 1950, Washington County General Hospital was opened by Washington County and was overseen by a board of governors appointed by the Quorum Court. The cancer support home on Woolsey was purchased in 1983. It was purchased for a price of $124,000 with hospital operating funds, not with county tax dollars. When Washington Regional became a private 501c3 in 1988 to ensure the financial viability of our Medical Center, this property was included in a lease, and it is under a lease until May 31st, 2063. This property was not released when the other property on College was released to be able to lease to the UAMS health system. As Tim mentioned, our request is to be able to sell this property and to apply 100% of the proceeds to the new cancer support home that is being purchased. This building for the entire time has been used for pure mission. The Washington County Auxiliary was initially housed there until, as Tim mentioned, 20 years ago, it became used for the cancer support home. That mission will not be changed. We will continue to use the proceeds of this property for that mission. We believe that there is public advantage that the county has recognized through Washington Regional. Just to name a couple of or three items, we have provided $1.65 million in monetary support of the Washington County HIV clinic. We have pledged $75,000 annually for the crisis stabilization unit. And since 2000, we have provided over $112 million of charity care and uncompensated care at our cost. We can certainly find a use for this building if after the cancer support home moves out, but we believe the highest and best use would be to take those proceeds and be able to apply it to this new project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lester, what kind of motion, what kind of consideration we need to give this?
You just have to have 2/3 approval of the quorum court in order to sell this, subject to ACA 1416-107, so you just need to do a motion to approve, and then I suggest a roll call vote.
All right, motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve and a second. JP Lemming.
I just got one question. I heard it right that the hospital has bought this property up front to begin with? Or did the county buy this property?
Auxiliary bond.
The what?
Hospital auxiliary.
That's correct.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out who bought it to start with.
Okay.
Got a motion and a second. Who was the second? I forgot.
I second.
Harbison. Any other discussion?
I was just curious of your perspective, Judge, since you're sort of the keeper of the property. I know you and Mr. Lester have looked a lot at county property and our assets in times of financial hard times, so I would like to hear your perspective if you're willing to offer one.
Absolutely. Well, we visit with them and have been good partners with these guys and definitely supportive of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
JP Madison.
Thank you. I just have a quick technical question. Who actually owns this property now?
We do.
County does.
Yes.
So we're the ones that have to technically sell it then?
That's correct. Well, no, yes. According to, how does that?
I mean, I
say
don't
that?
understand how they could sell something they don't own.
We would sell it to them. I mean, how is that laid out, Counselor?
He probably makes more money than me.
Thank you. My name's Tom Olmsted. I'm the General Counsel for Washington Regional. The property is owned by the county. The statute that we are here today to ask you to consider permits the county to sell the property to Washington Regional. So we're asking you tonight to agree to deed the property in consideration for the public advantage that Washington Regional has provided the county and since our relationship started in 1988. And for the public advantage that's been provided, and then we in turn can market that property, sell it, take the proceeds, and invest it in the new cancer support home. So that's the request.
And to the county's advantage, in all likelihood, we would start collecting property taxes on the property.
That would be a benefit as well, yes.
A little bit of gain there for the county. Thank you.
JP Pine, you have a question for him?
Yes, I recognize that it's been put to good use for many years, and that the sale of this will go towards an upgrade to do the same thing. Just out of, just for the public's knowledge, the question should be asked, you know, because we're talking about this and doing business for the public. Does anyone know what that property appraises for? Give us an idea of what kind of money we're talking about.
Well, I don't know that I'm qualified to speak to that, and we haven't commissioned a study of it, but it is a nice home and it has some size to the lot. And, you know, I know that homes in Fayetteville can go from anywhere to $140 to $150 a square foot. It's not quite in the historic district, but if it were in the historic district, that would probably be a little higher. We hope we'd get as much value out of it as we possibly could. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks. Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty, we'll do a roll. Oh,
I just wanted to know if 100% of the proceeds are going for the house and the benefit of the public or to administration cost.
okay, thank you.
Sherry Mang, I'm sorry.
100% would be reinvested back into the construction.
The new one. Ms. Patty, this is on the passage of item 20.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, so that passes. Thank you, guys.
Could I ask one point of order real quick, Judge? Sure. The statute, the county judge and 2/3 of the quorum court has to approve it. I assume that you're in favor as well?
Absolutely. You, absolutely. J.P. Bowman,
Okay, number 21, Mr. Lester, would you read it?
An ordinance calling a special election in Washington County, Arkansas on the question of issuing bonds under Amendment Number 62 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of capital improvements, levying a new 1/4 of 1% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds, and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto.
I entertain a motion and a second.
I move that we pass 2.1, 21.1.
Second.
I got a motion to approve and a second by J.P. Harbison, J.P. Madison, and J.P. Madison, and then J.P. Jenkins.
I, first of all, had a procedural question because I attended the County Services Committee where there was no ordinance on the agenda, and now miraculously we have an ordinance. And I understood that the procedure we had invoked was that an ordinance had to come out of committee, and we didn't have anything before the committee. It was just a verbal presentation. And so I'm a little concerned as to how we have sort of a complete ordinance that didn't come out of committee. But beyond that, I am not going to be supporting this because I have a number of constituents have expressed concern to me about questions I raised, I guess, in committee, was the lack of competitive bidding, the process that we got to get to this point. And then I think, too, that we're going to the trouble of calling an election, and I think that we ought to be a little bit more forward-thinking in terms of what we should be putting on the ballot for voters to decide, and a little more comprehensive in that. I don't doubt the need for this at all. I just really am not comfortable with the procedure as it's been laid out. I want there to be much more in terms of competitive bidding, insurance that we're getting the best price, and that the way we're handling it with the various entities that we're providing equipment or dollars to, that would be much more clearly spelled out. So, thank you, Mr. Judge.
J.P. Madison, then J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Sometimes it amazes me how much my daughter and I agree on things that we've never thought about. But anyway, I find this entirely too vague to be on our agenda to refer to the voters. Part of what bothered me from our discussion that we did have at County Services was that we were talking about giving the rural fire departments the funds to buy their radios, and that they would own those radios. And I called legislative audit, and there is a constitutional issue with that. Article 12, Section 6. We can't go around just giving away money. I just think this is very premature. It's just an idea that's going on the ballot, and we don't ask people to vote on ideas. We ask them to vote on clearly spelled out issues. And legislative also thought that we ought to be taking some bids on some of these items. So I think this is very premature, and I'm certainly going to vote against it.
J.B. Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. I met with a member of the committee, the Farmington Chief of Police, and he brought me some information to share with you all tonight, so I wanted to do that real quick. The project cost estimate from the radio committee as presented to the Washington County Quorum Court was $8.5 million. The final cost could vary slightly due to the unknowns and due to the state of any changes that they may make when they're pending contract to update the system. As far as vendors go, Motorola, Kenwood, and at least 5 other vendors, to include Harris and ICOM, are able to sell Department of Homeland Security approved P25 radios to our public safety agencies in Washington County. As far as bids go, the public safety radios and public safety radio systems can be and are purchased via the National Association of State Procurement Officials, the NASPO bid. Due to the state of Arkansas participating in the NASPO contract, it allows Washington County to utilize the existing highly discounted pricing contract. Arkansas has had a representation, one of 12 people from 8 states involved in the overall RFP development and the proposal evaluations of the contract that was chosen. So the options were that there were 7 different options. P25 radio manufacturers are currently vendors on the NASPO's contract, and agencies could purchase products that the Department of Homeland Security Office of Emergency Communications has approved P25 for use from those manufacturers. So there was some confusion at the last meeting, my fault. Contrary to what was stated in the services meeting, Farmington and Prairie Grove agencies will need the new P25 radios, but that is indeed, I had said that they didn't, that their current radios would be compatible. I was confused. I did not have the proper information. But that the radios are in fact a part of the budget for this. So all P25 radios that have been discussed, proposed, are compatible and will work together on the system and can also share IDs, and that's the ones proposed. As for how to manage purchasing for agencies, it was in his opinion, Chief of Police, that it would be best if the radios are purchased by the respective agency, and then the county could at that time refund the agency $1,750 per radio unit for what they purchased. And this part, I really stand by these guys with this last statement. It says, who involved knows better than the end users and what they need? The best person or persons to decide which radios should be purchased for use should be the leadership of the different agencies who've been informed in their personnel and are and will be the daily users of the product. Not someone who hasn't or never will be an end user of the product. I'm a teacher. I don't want someone who doesn't have an education degree telling me how to do my job. I'm the expert in my field. They're the experts in their field. I think we need to give them the benefit of the doubt here, and they gave us a lot of good information. I will be supporting this ballot initiative. Thank you.
J.B. Deacons.
I have a couple of technical questions, and County Attorney Lester, you might be able to fill me in here. You know, the idea behind these was that this tax would be on until this particular project was funded, and then it would retire, right? What in this ordinance gives me that language where I can be comfortable with that that's included specifically?
Well, in the text of in the ordinance itself, it's you have to prescribe a certain amount, and that's something the Quorum Court would have to decide the exact amount that it wants. There are a lot of variables in that, and Kevin Fott from Stevens is here, who's provided me a bunch of numbers. A 1 cent sales tax over the last 12 months would have brought in $42,804,691. So you're looking at a quarter of that. When you do a tax like this, you do one of two things. One, you issue bonds, and if you issue bonds, it's like any other loan you get. You're going to have some interest that accrues. The other is you just do the tax and you do a pay-as-you-go, and so it would depend upon This would be paid for in, we wrote this down, in 10 months. A quarter cent would pay for the 8.5 million. In 10 months, the taxes are go on the books and go by quarter, so you'd really be doing a full 1 year at this point. And then it would stop. And any money that comes in, should you pass this, regardless of if you do bonds or pay-as-you-go, any money that is collected pursuant to this would have to be used on this project. You couldn't have excess money that you then put into the general fund or used on something else. It would have to be used for the purchase of radios. Also, with that, you cannot give money to anyone else. The county would have to purchase the radios, and then would have to, if they wanted to, they would have to loan the radios, the equipment to the agencies. But the county would own the property. You can't just give it to them. And so there's just a lot of varying factors, and the ordinance actually spells that out. You would have to determine what you want. If you want to issue bonds, it's been recommended that you ask to collect the 8.8, but I think that since it's done quarterly, given the money that was brought in, you're really just going to be doing a quarter-cent sales tax for 12 months to fund this project if you pass it.
So it could come down to the point where we have some extra money that we're just trying to get rid of.
Or you would have extra money that you could use for maintenance
For
or upkeep
radios.
or something, but it would have to be used for this particular project.
And so you are comfortable with the fact that the county has to purchase these radios?
Absolutely.
Because I have a lot of questions too about the procurement.
No, the county had this, you can't tax the individuals and then give the money out. It has to be earmarked, and it's very specific that you can't use it for anything else, and yes, the county would then have to purchase all the equipment.
One of the greatest assets this county has is our rural fire departments, and I think we're all very aware of that. I've been talking to my chief out there at Nob Hill, Gary Hull, and he's been very clear with me that he wants to participate in that procurement process. And I feel like we've gotten down here again, and I know the radios are a critical issue, but we still have a lot of these questions yet to answer. How do I go to the public and raise $10 million without my fire chief being comfortable with this tax? And he's the one that will benefit from it. So that's where I'm at. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
J.B. Yanez.
So I'm going to look at this as a voter. I don't know what I'm voting for, and I don't know what we're going to get. There's no detail on here. I don't know radio talk, and so now we're sending this out to the voters without no detail information. And so I can't vote on this for that reason. And just for transparency, we can't just say, let's trust them, because we know where that ends at, where we're at right now in this country with let's trust them. So we need detailed information. We trust the individuals, but for the voters, we need to have that transparency where this money's going to.
J.P. Jenkins, then
Thank
J.P. Arbison.
Thank you. I appreciate being allowed to speak again. We need to trust their expertise.
Okay.
We need to trust their experience. We need to trust their knowledge of the equipment we're saying trust their expertise, trust their knowledge of the equipment.
Okay.
And I'm sure this isn't going to go blind to the voters. This is going to be a very publicized, I'm sure that there will be forums. I know that the officers that I've spoken with and the departments that I've spoken with they need this now. And if we don't get this on the ballot, we're going to be paying for a special election to put it on the ballot, right? Am I correct in that? I mean, right now, it would go on the ballot during the March primary, right? And what's the deadline to get something on the primary ballot? It's coming up, I'm sure, right? Has legal counsel, can you tell me when?
I don't know.
It has to be on by the end of December.
I thought you had told us.
Say it again.
We have to vote on it by the end of December to be on the March primary, on the ballot in the March primary. And, I think the rural fire departments realize that they've got to do a publicity and explain why we need these radios. John Luther says we're one lightning strike away from being incapacitated for the whole county. So this is very crucial and critical. And yes, we've been studying this and looking at what Washington County needs for over 2 years. So it's not something that's just come up overnight. Oh, we need a radio. They have studied, they, have come up. Willie Lemming probably can explain it a lot better than I can because he's been involved in this. But this is crucial that we get this on the ballot in March. And it's an infrastructure that the whole county needs to be able to communicate with the state and the surrounding counties if we have some kind of natural disaster or not a disaster of any kind. So, it's very crucial that these radios are brought up to speed so that we can communicate with everybody, each individual community. Thank you.
J.P. Lemming.
We can talk all night about this, and we can go on all night about it. I'll throw some stuff out here, and you just do a little bit of listening. Motorola, okay, let's back up to the AWIN system. The state of Arkansas will allow one vendor put the infrastructure in, and that's Motorola. You've got one vendor for the infrastructure of AWIN radio P25. Yes, there are different vendors for different radios. That is true. Most fire departments around here use Kenwood because we have serviceability here. There's 4, 5, 6, 8 others. If they're not P25 certified, they cannot be on the AWIN system. Right now, today, Washington County Radio System Equipment Proposal, the infrastructure is 4 Motorola P25 FDMA 6-channel tower sites. That's at Hazel Valley, that's at Winslow, that's at Morrow, that's at Lincoln Lake. Dispatch consoles, Central EMS will have 5 Motorola P25 MCC 7500 console systems. Washington County Sheriff's Office will have 7 Motorola P25 MCC 7500 console systems. City of Fayetteville, Arkansas will have 2 Motorola P25 FDMA channels added to each of their 3 City of Fayetteville tower sites. Cost per P25 infrastructure will be $4,957,000. User radios, we need 1,727 units for all 18 volunteer fire departments across Washington County. That's Central EMS, that's the volunteer fire departments, that is John Luther's office, that's the sheriff's office, on and on and on, at a cost of $3,100,000. The administration fees, 3%, $255,000. Project management is 1.5% of it. The legal fees and administration is $20,000. That's $127,500. Bonds charges about $40,000 administration fees. Cost per all that is $442,500,000. And that estimated cost is $8,500,000. Now, the state of Arkansas has put $52 million to upgrade TDMA 1 to TDMA 2. It's going to a different phase. Washington County will have to pay another $200,000 on top of this $8.5 million to simulcast everybody in Washington County, Benton County, the state of Arkansas State Police, the forest rangers, the dog catchers. Anybody in this area can key up a mic and talk anywhere in the state of Arkansas. It's going to cost another $200,000 on top of this $8.5 million because the state of Arkansas spent $52 million to upgrade everything. So our cost is going to change. We cannot tell you that it's going to cost you exactly $8.5 million, $9 million. When they change, we change to get there. This committee has went through a lot of grass in a year's time to lay all this stuff out on the line. And all we're asking right now is the voters to vote on, if you want to say $8.5, $9 million, if they don't approve it, it ain't going to work anyway. We're asking them, yes, we have a lot of paperwork to do. Yes, we got a lot of stuff to go through with Brian to make sure it's done right. And I think all 18 volunteer fire departments do not care if the county owns the radios. We don't care who owns the radios. That's fine. We don't care. And we've given them the option of the $1,727 that is a good, quality P25 radio. We've asked every volunteer fire department in Washington County to give us a number, how many they need, the sheriff's office, Central EMS, and all of them. So we got a pretty good idea of what we're gonna need here. So that is where I feel like the committee is, and feel like that's where our number's coming from, and I feel like that's what we need. Keep in mind, Motorola come into Washington County back about a year ago, and we run our system on what they call a passport system. Motorola bought that system and took that system offline. So Washington County right now cannot buy a radio for a fire department to use. They're not out there. We're done buying radios for fire trucks and handheld radios. You can't buy no more. So we have, and like she mentioned, that we're one lightning strike away, and we are. I mean, it's gonna come to a point, if we don't get something done, we're gonna have to back up, and we're gonna have to spend our money out of our pocket to fix what we got going now, you know? And it's gonna be expensive either way we go, and we all know that. So we need to make up our minds if we want a radio system, and if we wanna go AWIN, we need to make our minds up that's what we need to do. So that's where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Lemming. J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I think we had to realize that we had the best qualified people in the county doing a study of these radios and looking at the options for about 2 years. And they had a difficult time sorting through all the options. And I think they've come up with a really great solution. And it's just up to us at this point to go ahead and move this on to the voters. Now, as far as the procedural part is concerned, if you go back to the November 4 meeting, the previous meeting, I failed to go ahead and get a vote on that to pass it on to full quorum court. But November 4, it was item number 4 that we passed that on to the full quorum court. I'm looking at it right here, right now. So it has been done procedurally properly. But we need to go ahead and get this motion passed so we can pass it on to the voters. So I'm asking you to approve it. I'm moving again that we pass this motion, pass it on with a due pass. I want to pass this motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. We're gonna go with J.P. Yanez and J.P. Deacons.
JP Lemming, can we get a copy of what you just read? I'm not an auditory listener or like learner, so what you said just went over my head.
Give me your phone number, I'll send it to you.
But all of us, all of us.
Okay.
J.P.
I'll get it to everybody. Thank you.
Email all JPs, please. Thank you.
J.P. Deacons.
If a particular agency wants a particular type or model of radio, will they be accommodated if that radio differs from the other agencies?
Are you asking, will it work on the system, or
I'm
will
saying
you?
if an agency picks a radio, and we all know it'll be AWIN certified or AWIN compatible, but they want a particular model of radio, and that particular model may differ from other agencies that are choosing their radios, will that agency be accommodated in that choice?
What the committee did was ask all fire departments to give amount of radios they wanted, and if you choose to buy a $4,000 radio, you pay the difference of what radio. Say you ask for 25 radios at $1,727 a pop. If you want to buy them same radios at $4,000 pop, you pay the difference. That's the way the committee looked at it.
County Attorney, does that reconcile with what you're telling us the law is?
No, it really wouldn't be up to the agencies to determine what they get. I mean, it would be the county's decision. Ultimately, it'd be the county judge who would probably put a bid out for radios, and everybody'd get the same thing.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Any other? All right, that's on the first read. J.P. Lemming.
I know where he's going with that, and I would hope to say the county judge would come to the fire chiefs meetings and sit at the round table with the 18 volunteer fire departments and work through that, because there's a lot of departments would really be mad if you forced $4,000 radios in their hands. I know they would. And I would just hope to say and pray that we could all work together and kind of stay in the same situation where we're at with the money. Because we just got to think about our citizens too. I mean, the citizens are paying this bill, and there's no sense wasting it when a good quality radio will work at $1,700 versus a $4,000 radio. So that's what I wanted to say.
Got a motion and a second.
There's no motion, it's only on first reading.
Oh, it's only on first read, so this goes on to the, well, unless there's a motion to suspend the rule and go to second read. Well, there's a motion on the floor, but it's only on first read. So unless there's a suspension of the rules to go to the second read, and it moves to the next.
Judge?
All right, so that motion to move to second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ms. Patty? Yeah. Suspend, this is the move to suspend the rules. Motion to suspend the rules.
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Fails. We'll move to the second reading next month.
All right, so we'll move on to the second reading next month.
Now, I'm gonna suspend.
It failed.
That was a motion to suspend.
I'm gonna make a motion to suspend the rules and read the third reading.
So you have to have
The
a,
motion to suspend to read a second time
It
failed
failed.
to get the requisite
We
number
had
of votes.
9.
You have to have 10.
You had to have 10.
so that'll come up next month. J.P. Harbison, item number 22.
Request for public comment?
I'm
On the,
gonna add-
on the final read, go ahead, item 22. J.P. Harbison.
Oh, I'm on 22. Okay, we have a line transfer request from the assessor, Russell Hill. This is just changing money from one line item to another line item to cover expenses. I make a motion that we pass this line item transfer.
All right, got a motion to pass 21.1 and 22.2, and a second by J.P. Pine. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson is absent. Okay.
All right, item 22 does pass. Item 23, J.P. Harbison.
All right, we have a line item request from Judge Beaumont for the same reason. I move that we pass 23.1.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for the passage of item 23, 23.1. Any discussion? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, line item 23.1 does pass.
All right.
Item 24, J.P. Harbison.
Same thing, line item transfer to clean up the budgets for the end of the year in the planning department. I make a motion to pass 24.1.
Second.
There's a motion to pass 24.1, a second by J.P. Pine. Any discussion? J.P. Madison.
I did not support this in committee and won't be supporting it tonight, just because the whole idea of having the approval process for line item transfers was to understand why we have to move money around. And when we just get an explanation that says we need to move money around to make our budget work, that's not very informative. I think that we are needing our departments to give us more information on why the budget they asked for doesn't work, which is what we got from the assessor and from Judge Beaumont. So, thank you.
Any other discussion? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington?
No.
Eva Madison?
No.
Andrea Jenkins?
Yes.
Suki Hires?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Willie Lemming?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Lance Johnson?
Item 24.1 passes. Item 25, J.P. Harbison.
All right. Brian, would you please read the title to 25?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $54,994 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $54,994 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the SCAP 2018 budget for 2019.
This is a grant that we normally get. Make a motion that we pass 25.1.
Got a motion to pass 25.1, a second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? J.P. Jenkins.
I was wanting to clarify kind of what the line item budget was for SCAP. I couldn't find that in any documentation. And I didn't know if maybe anyone from law enforcement had that information, like what the money is line item spent on, or, thank you.
It's been on
I know you don't have the line item on you, but can you give me a rough idea?
Yes, Jay Cantrell, Sheriff's Office. Last year, we spent that money on barcode scanners that we use to track inmate movement within the facility and outside the facility. And so this year, we plan to continue to enhance that program, to buy some more scanners, and to buy detainee uniforms, and then for training for our detention officers is our plans for the money this year.
Is any of that funding used for salaries?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? All right, Ms. Patty.
Susan.
Oh, all right, well, hold tight.
I really do want to make the
Again,
point.
I know you've been up here a few times. Go ahead, state your name.
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. I really do want to make the point that this money that comes in is closely related to the way we are treating the immigrant community in our area, and that this line item to criminal aliens is actually talking about real human beings. And this, even though the full title was left off this year, that doesn't mean that it's not known what this money's actually coming for. People really do need to understand that that across the country, there are a lot of instances where people who are being accused of felonies and deported for felony convictions 20 years ago that are not relevant to their lives now, that they have turned around their lives and they're now living as good people. And these bills that we are getting money for this, and I really want us to remember that this is having an impact on our community in ways that are not necessarily just that we get money from this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, that one goes to the second reading, so that'll come back up next month. Item 26, J.P. Harbison.
Okay, item 26. Brian Lester, would you please read item 26?
An ordinance levying the county municipal and school district taxes for the year 2019.
All right, these are presented. There have been no amendments to this, so I make a recommendation that we pass the ordinance for levying county and municipal and school taxes for the year 2019.
Got a motion to pass 26.1.
Second.
A second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Andrea Jenkins. Suki Hires. Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, that, item 26.1 does pass. Item 27, 27.1, 27 through 27.3, J.P. Harbison.
All right, we have, okay, Brian, would you please read 27.1 and through 27.3?
An ordinance to establish the Washington County annual budget for the calendar year 2020.
Okay, I think we worked hard on this budget. We started out with a carryover of 1.6 million, which to me was very, very scary. And I let everybody know about it. And with the new revenue coming in and with people moving money from especially their automation funds, personnel that they could use that money, it freed some money up in the budget. And now at this time, we have a little over $4 million. I have concern though about the raises that are in this budget. And I'm gonna make a motion that we pass the budget with a 3% increase instead of the 2%.
All right, we have a motion to pass 27.1, which is the budget for 2020, but instead of 2%, it would be a 3% employee
Increase
raise.
for-
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? J.P. Madison.
Before I get myself confused, are we voting on the entire budget or just her amendment?
We're voting on the entire budget.
Well,
with that
we
amendment.
You got to vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
So we're
Vote-
voting on just the amendment?
That's correct.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Madison.
So I'm very grateful that J.P. Harbison has made this motion because I found myself in the situation today. I don't know if you all remember the movie Dave where they put a stand-in for the president and they're gonna cancel the homeless shelter funding in the budget, but they say, but if you can find $650 million in the budget, you could keep it. So that's what I felt like I was doing today, trying to find $300,000 in the budget to pay for this because I felt like if it was if our employees in fact were a priority, we should find ways to do it. I managed to find $150,000 just in travel and training expenses in just a handful of departments. And I'm not saying that training and travel don't have their right places, but I found it shocking that we couldn't manage to find $300,000 when just looking at about 8 budgets, I found $150,000 in something that I considered to be a lot less important than employee raises. So thank you for making this motion. I will be supporting it.
J.B. Deakins.
You know, when we look over this budget process, I don't know that I'm proud here tonight, sitting here with this final product. The process was a circus, to say the least. I completely agree with my colleagues that our employees are the most important asset that we have in this county. If we want to prioritize those raises, though, we should have done it at the front end of this budget. We have a spending problem in this county, and I want the public to understand that. It is out of control. There's no victory to say we have $4 million in reserves, and we're now going to dip it below that. I'm going to commit myself to the budget that we all worked on and that we all approved in committee. It's very important for us to stick to some discipline in this fiscal process. Thank you very much.
J.P. Johnson.
Yeah, I'm struggling like everybody else, and I want to take care of our employees, and I want to take care of the jail problem. We sat in this room 2 months ago and said, no budgets and no employees, no new employees. That's what we said in this room. What have we done since then? We've added 8 people to the sheriff's department. We've added 2 people to the prosecutor's department. We've added 3 people to the public defender's department. We've added 2 to JDC and 1 to the veterans. That's $907,500 we've added. And that ain't a one-time deal, folks. That goes on forever. A year ago, the court passed the step raises. The step raises were described to me as a historic event. That added $1 million a year ago. It was offset by one-time budget cuts, not permanent, one-time budget cuts. That $1 million multiplies, it compounds at 1.35% forever. And there were many raises in that step raise proposal that were much higher than the raises we've heard outrage about tonight. Much higher. I think, the other thing, the previous court raised the millage by $1.8 million. We spent every dime. The Constitution says that our primary responsibility is to protect the public fisc. Now, that's a term that home builders don't use very often. I had to look it up to see what it was. But if we ignore the reserve and keep kicking the can down the road, someday it's going to matter. It may not be next year or it may not be the year after, but we've spent $1 million to help fix the problem at the jail. That goes on forever. At some point, we've got to draw the line and make some hard decisions. Thank you.
J.P. Deacons and J.P. Bowman.
I just want to tag
then
on
J.P.
to that.
Jenkins.
When I sat back where these people sit last year and watched this court raise our taxes, the commentary was that we were raising taxes to help fund the reserve and get this county back on a fiscal, take it off the fiscal cliff. And I want everybody to take a look at what your quorum court did. They took that money that they said we were going to fund the reserve with, and we have spent every dollar of it. Every dollar of it.
Just J.P. Bowman and J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I've been on this court 7 years now, and I started off asking for improvements in efficiency in county government. And you know, it seems that we've been trying to get that done over the past couple of years. Last time we came in here and we heard all these people coming forward and asking for 3% raises for the employees, and I agree. They need the 3% raises. What I'm doing, I'm asking, all those people came forward and asking for the additional raises to find the efficiency in their departments to cover those raises. We have got to start finding some ways to improve efficiency in this county government, or we're done. You know, every industry in Northwest Arkansas is doing things better with less every day they in business. I started out with one of those really successful businesses, and I watched them prosper because they said from the very outset, we've got to do more with less. We've got to learn to do the same thing. And so I'm asking leadership in this court, in this county, to step up and find some additional efficiencies in your department. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Bowman. J.P. Jenkins. J.P. Duncan.
I think that's a great point. I think it's interesting that our last meeting we had elected officials and department heads come up and talk about how that our people deserve more, and I absolutely agree. So here's your challenge. I'm going to vote against this tonight. Go find more within your budget and come back to the table with more money. There's still, I mean, I voted against multiple budgets as we went through the process, and there's still inefficiencies. There's easy money to find. So it starts with the $5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000 line items that are unnecessary. So go cut those line items, and then let's bring the raise. But you can't pay for the raise with no money. So let's go find the money within our departments that we're overspending on. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we had the amendment to the budget from 2% to 3%. Any other discussion on that? All right, all in favor? All in favor on the amendment to go from 2% to 3%? Aye. All opposed? No. Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. No. Harvey Bowman. Yes. Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins. No. Sam Duncan. No. Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
What was that?
10.
Was that 10? Okay, so that passes. All right, so now we got the original, the amended now budget. Go ahead.
We pass the amended budget.
All right, have a motion to pass the amended budget
Second.
and a second by J.P. Pine. In discussion, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. On page 48 in our packet, or what's we've been calling the budget controls, is this part of the budget, Mr. Lister? I assume it is. Well, this language, where the first year it's 80% of the maximum of the range for that year. My husband has taught university mathematics for over 40 years. And I got him to tell me what that means, 80% of the maximum of the range. And then I talked to the HR director and the comptroller, and those answers were not the same. Both the HR director and the comptroller tell me that what they do is it's 80% of the maximum for that year. So I don't know why in the world this language is in here of the range. It makes no sense. I mean, if in practice what we're doing is if the range is, say, from 45,000 to 100,000 and we're paying 80% of the 100, then why don't we say that? So I'd like to move that we change this language in the budget controls to items 1 through 9, say 80%, et cetera, of the maximum for that year, and make it as clean as possible, because otherwise I think some board attorney might kind of look at this and wonder what in the world did we mean. Thank you, ma'am. It's just a
So that's and I have to. So this is a amendment. Yes, amendment to the
Budget controls.
budget controls, and that's striking of the range. Of the range.
From 101 through 109?
Yes, from line 101 through 109.
Looking back through some previous budgets, I noticed that when Judge Edwards was the county judge, that's what it said, 80% of the maximum for that year. So I don't remember when this got changed or why. But what we're doing is the maximum for that year.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we have a motion to amend the budget controls from line 101 through 109, taking out the words of the range. And we have, who was that seconded by? J.P. Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. That passes. All right.
All right.
One more time.
One more time. I make a motion that we pass the
Okay.
budget.
So we passed it with the amendment
Okay.
and the change. J.P. Bowman.
I want to know what impact this has on the reserves if we pass with a 3% raise.
It's still at 4 million, I think. It depends on what all, if we pass these other raises that were asked for. Okay, the 3% is 4.1 million. I got this today from Shannon Worthen of if we added the 3%. So,
All right.
we did have 4.3 with 2%.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion?
The motion is
To pass the budget as amended. To pass the budget for 2020 as amended. J.P. Johnson?
Thank you, Judge. My question is, I mean, I think I know what this says. When we get done, are we going to get a document that shows us what we passed?
That's correct.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Public comments? J.B. Duncan?
I just want to state that I will still be voting against this until the department heads come to the table with money to pay for the increased raise.
J.P. Masson?
I just wanted to thank our chair for the work she did. I think she's been subjected to some criticism that I think is unfair. This is always a difficult process, which makes it difficult to say that I appreciate your work, but I'm going to vote against the budget, and that's because I'm very unhappy with some of the things that went into it, the lack of questioning of expenses. I have the sense that most of the substantive budget discussions about critical line items happen behind closed doors because they just simply didn't happen in the open. And that bothers me very much. I feel like after last year's budget process, we had a lot of public trust to build because there were some raises that were hidden that never got really explained. And I don't think we've done a good job of restoring that trust. We had major budgets come through with big expenses with no questions asked. And I don't feel good about that. I also don't feel good about an issue with the road fund, and that's because we, as much as I will really make J.P. Harbison angry when I say this, I'm going to say it. People are talking about how we're going to make this work. We have given 40% of our dedicated 1% sales tax to the road fund, and the road fund has not even asked to budget all of that money next year. They are leaving in excess of $1.1 million in reserves that is general fund money. And we're talking about how we're gonna scrape together money to give a 3% raise when the road department is gonna sit on $1.1 million that they're not even asking to use. This is not about saying to the road department, we're not giving you money to pave the roads that need paving. We're saying we're giving you all you want and more. And no one's even questioned that. And I don't feel good about that. I'm very happy to see that these raises are included, that the step is continuing. We worked hard for that last year. We did it to make sure that our law enforcement officers were paid competitively. But I think this court could have done a lot better to discuss this budget in the open, in the sunlight, where the public could really judge what we were passing. Thank you, Mr. Judge.
J.P. Pine?
Just like everybody else, some things that got put into this budget, I might not have been very happy with. There are 15 JPs on this court, and each one of them can find some things in there they probably really didn't like. It's a give and take situation. We're never gonna come up with a budget that all 15 of us are completely happy with. We've got to learn how to get along. Like I said, it's a give and take issue. And as far as a little bit of money left for reserve in the road budget, what on earth do we do when there's FEMA issues come up where there is, due to floods, freezing, ice, tornadoes? We have to match. It's a matching deal, but whenever we say it's a matching money deal with FEMA, we have to pay for the entire project. And sometime down the road, we get money that's promised to us from FEMA. We don't know how long that'll be. Some of that money might be 2, 3, 4 years before we receive it. we're never gonna get that money from FEMA if we don't complete that project ourselves on our own. You've got to have, my goodness. In a road project, the people depend on the roads, our economy. The roads affect everything about our economy, revenue stream, and it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the county, it's going to affect your revenue stream in city government. Let's just call that rainy day money, but it's a little more than rain. And I'm not going to complain about how long it takes to get FEMA to pay up. I'm just more than happy to get it when we do. It's a big brother issue. The federal government, they settle up with us when they decide it's time to. I'm going to vote for this budget. And like I said, there are things in it I might not necessarily like, but some of my colleagues do. We got things still going to come up that I might not necessarily like, but some of my colleagues do. I guess the biggest part of this, what is hard for me to understand sometimes or comprehend is because I've never gotten just in everything that I wanted. I've just never been, had that in my situation. I didn't just wake up one day and that was something I wanted and I thought I ought to have her and I deserved. And say, well, one time it didn't happen. I didn't get what I wanted. I just can't remember when I just ever did. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be voting to approve this budget, and it's just like every other budget. There's going to be some things about it I didn't want. Thank y'all for being very patient with this old country boy.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. J.P. Bowman.
I tell you, I understand concern about $1.5 million laying around in the road budget, but you tell me that you can predict which bridge is going to be wiped out with another big rain, and if it's going to your favorite neighborhood, you're going to want that stinking bridge fixed as soon as possible and not wait on FEMA to come in and take care of it. And this year we just got money back from 2 or 3 years ago that FEMA was coming up with. So we've got to have some money set aside to take care of these emergencies. If it's not there, we can't get it done. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Bowman. All right, have any other discussion? Public comments?
May I make a comment, Judge?
Let me come. I'll come back to you, J.P. Harbison. Go ahead.
Okay.
Kyle Sylvester, live in Johnson, but I'm also the Washington County Circuit Clerk. I've talked to a couple of JPs prior to this meeting, and I guess it's time to put up or shut up. And I'm willing to scrap a project that I've scheduled for next year at $100,000 if we can take that money and get raises. JP Madison said she can find, what was it, 150? Well, there's 250. If you need 300, let's find another 50 because they're worth it. Whatever y'all got to do to adjust it, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Circuit Clerk. Sylvester, go ahead, J.P. Harbison.
Well, I can make a comment. Our circuit clerk, he had already moved $300,000 to his automation fund, which freed up $300,000 in the general fund. Angela Wood moved $100,000 to the automation fund, freeing up $100,000 there. And Bobby Hill moved money to the automation fund where he could, freeing up nearly another 100,000. So we had $500,000 that some of our elected officials helped out in providing our balance that we now have. And that's 500,000, and the other actually came from the increase in the 0.5 of a mil and the increase in property taxes. So we are making headway, maybe not as much as some of us would like, but I think that we did make headway this year. I think we can be more efficient, but I think, I would like for us to go on and pass the budget tonight, but I see that it's probably not going to pass, which means that we have to have 3 meetings to pass this budget. So that will be up to the county judge to call special quorum court meetings, which increases the expenses of the quorum court having to meet and vote on this budget. So I'm going to go on and move, and I think I've already done this. So we do have a motion and a second to pass this budget as amended.
Tom, be quick. I want to go ahead and give Ms. Patty the roll. We already had our discussion in our public
I'll be real
comments.
quick on this. I'm gonna take Kyle Sylvester's word for it. If we pass this budget tonight, I believe he'll send us back his $100,000 anyway. He's already committed to. The rest of it being, everybody before this vote, think about that, how much each one of us gets paid every time we have a meeting. And that's what's gonna happen. In order to get what y'all want, it's gonna cost, cause I'm coming to every one of them and I'll take my money. So, thank you.
Ms. Patty? We got the motion in a second. Ms. Patty, go ahead and make your roll. JP Madison.
I would like to make the motion to amend the budget to adopt the decrease that our circuit clerk just asked for. He's wanting it, so.
What line item are we moving where from and where to?
You know what that is off the hand, Kyle?
2006, 0128, 4,000.
One more time?
3006, 0128, 4,000 line item capital improvement.
That's the reduction?
Yes,
You said 100?
100,000.
JP Harbison.
Okay, we have 100,000 of the 300,000 that we need, so, so now we only need 200,000 to meet, some other request on this court. I'm not sure that we can do that at this time.
Well,
I'm gonna call for the vote.
There you go.
Let's just vote.
Are you on this? We have a motion, we have a motion.
Oh, we got a minute. Oh, okay. I'm
Was there-
sorry.
there
I'm
was
not following. Okay.
Was there a second?
All right. We have a motion and a
second.
second on the floor to
Amend,
amend the budget to add $100,000 to salaries that from Kyle Sylvester's remodeling fund. I guess is what that was.
all right, all in favor? Those opposed? Okay, so
Now
now
we're
we go
back to the
back to the
budget.
passing of the 2020 amended budget. All right, Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez. Patrick Deakins. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins,
We're on the budget.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, so that'll go on to the second reading. That does not pass through.
As someone who voted no, I would like to vote to reconsider the vote so that we can get it done tonight. Because there are majority votes. There are 8 votes to pass the budget. And there's no point in adding meetings at an expense to the county if it's got the votes to pass. And so to do the right thing is to re-vote, and I will be the one to change my vote. So I would move to re-vote on that. And I think, I know I haven't said that properly,
9?
but if Mr. Lester could help me make sure that's articulated correctly. I know that I'm the right person to make the motion.
Right.
I just don't know what the proper
What
motion is.
what was the number, Patty?
8.
It was 8, so that just
8.
becomes 9.
So it would move to second reading, but if I reconsider, then,
Do we need 10 regardless?
No, it's a motion to reconsider the vote or recall the vote.
I
It has
think
to be
we,
done by the minority.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
and I think we have to formally vote to reconsider,
Right.
and then we would re-vote.
Right.
And this is simply to spare the expense of 2 more meetings.
I'm still trying to get, how do you get to, so we're gonna keep doing that same. J.P. Pine.
It's a question for the parliamentarian. Does this require a second? And if so, would it have to be one of the other no voters? I'll second.
All right, he's just checking the procedure. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. We have a December meeting, right?
That's correct.
So why are we assuming it takes 2 more meetings to pass it? We could suspend rules and pass it in December, could we not?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
J.P. Duncan.
I move to adjourn.
No.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. There was no second. That was a good try.
We're not
What's
adjourned.
that?
Takes a majority to reconsider.
All right, so it's a majority to reconsider. So we have a motion to reconsider, seconded by J.P. Jenkins. J.P. Pine. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. We'll go back to the motion to approve the amended
Budget.
budget for 2020. Ms. Patty?
Susan Cunningham. No. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
No.
Sam Duncan.
No.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
All right, so that passes. So item
Passes.
27-1 passes. As amended. Ms. Patty, you good? You good? Okay. All right, committee, J.P. Bowman County Services Committee report. It was in the, you can say it's in the, okay. Turn your mic on.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. The upgrade, the cancer support group and the Illinois watershed came and shared a very informative piece. That was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. J.P. Harbison, Finance and Budget. There you go.
Say we passed the budget, and I thank all of you for your ideas and your input to this budget. It's not perfect, but I think we're headed in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Harbison. J.P. Johnson.
We had a meeting, the report is in your packet.
Thank you, J.P. Johnson. J.P. Pine.
Yes, thank you. We did not meet for lack of agenda, and so we saved the county a little bit of tax money. You didn't have to pay me that night.
Excellent. Meeting adjourned.